Hello! Some new faces, I imagine. Some old faces, welcome back. If you're old, welcome in. If you're new, I imagine there's going to be some new maggots in here. If you've read the title of who the guest is, I imagine you know there's going to be a whole audience of maggots. If you don't know who the guest is, you think I'm being incredibly offensive there by calling people maggots. And maybe this podcast is not for you because I can be much more offensive than that. There's going to be new people. Let's get an intro out of the way. Bish, bash, bosh, straight into the episode. Warning, these intros are designed to annoy and alienate you. I don't know why. I've just got a running in joke. Some people are in on the joke. If you sort of are a bit perplexed by it, do me a favour, just laugh and be like, oh, that was funny, I enjoyed it, and tell your friends. Okay, before we get into the guest, let's talk about the sponsor of today's podcast. Don't you go anywhere. It's Displate. Displate make metal posters. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you can see them in the background of all of the episodes. They make posters literally made of metal, as in they're not made of paper. We're living in the future. No need for paper posters. That's quite hard to say. No need for this like eco-unfriendly paper waste, sticking stuff up. There's not even any need for frames and hammers and nails because Displates mount to the wall with a magnet. There's no mess, there's no fuss. You stick the protective leaf on the wall, you put the magnet on, and then you mount your Displate. That means you can change them out for different ones. They've got bands, they've got games, they've got a Downbeat store. Look, in the background I've got Akira, that's a movie. I've got Downbeat, that's a podcast brand thing. We got new Downbeat ones. This is a sort of hentai looking thing. This is a sort of Cannibal Corpse looking thing. And this is sort of me surfing the internet when I was a kid searching for death metal and beheading videos. Again, if you were just listening to that, I'm really sorry. Just imagine really cool posters that you can mount on the wall at displate.com using the code Downbeat. Between 1 and 3 Displates you get 22% off, and 3 and above you get 33% off. Displate.com. And the code is Downbeat. That's that. Done. My guest this week is Jay Weinberg. He plays the drums in a band called Slipknot. If you like heavy music, you know who Slipknot are. If you don't like heavy music, guess what? He's filled in for Bruce Springsteen. This was all news to me. 300 song set. I don't want to ruin it for you, but the man, so hospitable. The whole reason I was in Nashville is because he said he wanted to do an episode. Really nice, down to earth, and seemingly stress-free. We were going through his career and just talking about all the stuff he's done, and I was like having a panic attack. I could not do what he does. High stress, high energy, unbelievable drummer, unbelievable dude. We went for tacos, as Americans call it, afterwards, so I feel like I could tell people we're mates. If you fancy supporting the podcast, patreon.com/The Downbeat. It's £1. It allows me to go to Nashville and do 9 episodes of the podcast with guests. It allows me to pay for the flight there, pay for the hotel there, probably pay for me going out to get drinks after every single episode there. If you don't like giving me money without getting something physical back in return, you can go to www.thedownbeat.at, so it spells Downbeat. You can pick up some merchandise, you can pick up, hoodies, t-shirts, clothes, bits and bobs. There's a US store that ships from California. There's a UK store that ships from good old Reading. Reading will kick your head in. It's Jay Weinberg from Slipknot on the Downbeat podcast. Jay, hi.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Continue your question.
Oh, so what happened with the Paul? Like, what happened with that? Because you mentioned it in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, never again.
I hate that shit when those things go sideways.
It's like, and I was so stoked. Like, that episode I hit the press agent up, which is, the normal way to do it. And they were like, Cannibal Corpse does not do any interviews and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can see why they don't. There's stuff they don't want to talk about or whatever. And I was like, let me just hit Paul up. So I don't know him, hit him up and was like, can you do this episode? Do you want to do an episode? I'm a drummer, blah, 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 blah. I love Cannibal Corpse. Then, as you can see. And he was like, yeah, fuck yeah. So we come and do it. And I'm like, I would say the Paul Cannibal episode, this episode, Matt Gasker yesterday and Mario Gojira is like, they're like episodes But the bucket list episodes and Lars, which is the only one that hasn't come yet, but he's coming.
It'll come. It'll come.
Bucket list stuff, because I just know, like, we don't know each other, but I see you. We've got mutual friends. I see the stuff you post online, and I'm like, we got shit in common. That'd be a great chat.
Yes. Yeah.
So Paul, I was like, so stoked on it. Do the whole thing, and it was before. If you look up there, there's that screen that it says recording and all this shit. It was before I had one of those up.
Yeah.
And I just fucking even getting anxiety thinking about it. Just freestyling. Like,
yeah.
I hope this works. Look back at the files and I lost half of the thing.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking.
So
I've had stuff like that. Not the same kind of thing, but like I've had stuff like, you know, doing the drum cam stuff that I've done where I'm like really excited for a show, like it's a big show for us or something, and I want to capture it in that way or whatever, and then all the cameras just like die after the first song, and I'm just like, what did I do?
Are you setting them up yourself?
Well, Justin will like press record and stuff, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I have them, they live on the drum set pretty much, so it's all mounted together. You know, just and luckily, you know, we travel for the most part on most tours. We're able to just set up my drum set once. I just, you know, play on it the first day, make sure everything's good, and then it just gets drilled into the riser, and then it just rolls in and out of the truck, so it doesn't have to get set up. Yeah, it really is. So back when I started, I mean, like I started videotaping myself like back on our first couple tours. Mainly kind of in a way, it was similar to, I used to be a hockey player, used to be a goalie, and I would set up a static camera facing myself as a goalie, and then I would have like a friend or a parent, you know, one of my parents like turn it when I go to the other side of the ice, just to make sure I could like objectively watch myself play a game, and be like, oh, I lowered my glove too much here or whatever, and then I would be able to kind of like work on that because I can view it objectively like that. So that's kind of why I started recording the GoPro stuff back when I wasn't really doing anything with the footage. And I was inspired then, because shortly after that, Ben Kohler started doing this crazy chest harness GoPro stuff, and he's one of my hugest inspirations and like
freak drummer,
total freak. And so, you know, it blew my mind seeing him, even though it's like really hard to process because you're just seeing that weird, like it's the angle that's right,
and it's
here.
A Converge song.
Yeah, and your arms look like his arms look like spaghetti, you know, doing the whole thing, but. It was really cool for me to watch that. And at the time, like, you know, this is probably almost 10 years ago, maybe a little over 10 years ago, there wasn't as much like, you know, drummers recording themselves in that way. Yeah. Like, you know, Sick Drummer would do stuff, and that was always really rad to watch. Or like Zildjian had done stuff with me and got, you know, guys before me before that. But there was, at the time when I was watching Ben do it, I was like, this is so crazy, because all you normally see like BMX guys riding around,
or it's a studio drum video,
right? So to get that like frenetic energy of a Converge show from that different perspective, I was like, that's so sick. So I kind of wanted to try a little bit of that myself. And then, you know, once I kind of got the hang of like, actually I would put the trust of where the GoPro would go in my drum tech's hands. So I wouldn't know night to night. It was like, you know, 8 or 9 years ago, night to night, I wouldn't know where the camera was. And then he would just like, you know, he would just give me the, you know, the SD card after and be like, oh, you know, find out where it was. But then that kind of led me to thinking like, well, if I could try to get like a GoPro hookup and try to get a bunch of cameras, then I could figure out like video editing software, and I could sync them all up together, and then I could do crazy, you know, multicam edits and stuff, and just have artistic fun with it. And that's all it's really ever been. But that's a long-winded way of saying like, yeah, so I'll position them all around me. And I think like right now I have 6, but that's because I have 12 cameras, and I used to do all 12 at one time. It was like, it was ridiculous. Like I had
one per cymbal.
Yeah. I had a bird's eye. I had one behind me. I had like 2 on my sides, 2 in front, 1 in the center. It was like ridiculous. But now I have 2. I have 2 kits, and so basically I have like GoPro rigs for each kit, so I don't have to like travel with them. But then, yeah, so I'll basically, I give the SD cards to Justin. Justin will like clear them, make sure all the GoPros are on. And then when I walk up, they're already, they're rolling. And then he'll just give the SD cards to me after the show and be like, "Man, see what you got."
And then one day you'll be like, "All right, I absolutely fucking nailed it." And then you'll be, "Oh, something went down on the main camera."
Well, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, so, if I want to capture a specific moment in the set and like, is that a really cool venue or something? And then like, of course, as always, when shit goes sideways.
And now I'm literally, I have paranoia. I'm just checking. I got a red button there and a red button there. As long as they're all red, then I'm good. You've been posting those videos a lot more frequently now.
Yeah, well, I've gotten into a flow with it. It feels like, and I think, what started out as like a single camera, maybe I could like, I was figuring out how to shoot. I can get one song and then I'll figure out iMovie of how to color treat things and try to get the audio a little bit better. It's difficult.
You just raw dog the GoPro audio.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's like the easiest way to do it. It's just to rip, the basic audio just from the camera. And I tried, what I've found with that is that the one over my left shoulder sounds the best or it sounds the least worst. That's the best stage sound because it gives kind of a realistic capture of what it is. You don't get much of the kick drum. You don't really get much of the toms. You get a lot of cymbals and snare.
Kind of love the way the snare sounds for a GoPro camera.
Oh, I know.
That, like,
it's rad. No, it is rad. But so, that in a pinch, or if I'm just like doing a quick clip that was from a really cool moment in a show that we just played or whatever, I can edit that super quick together and then just throw it up. But I've always wanted to just like expand, like how can I push this, this element of like what I feel is like heightening the overall experience of anybody who either was at that show or who wasn't at that show or whatever. And as we're going through the course of a tour, you can see things start to change and evolve. If I post, say, like this last tour, we just started playing a new song from our newest record, which from this, the start of the tour, the first time we play it, to like, 20 shows later or something at the end of the tour, it's kind of a little bit different. I'm more sat in the, the experience of playing that song. So I find that interesting to be able to show, anybody who's willing to check it out, that progression of that. And I think that's a cool thing to be along for the ride, for that kind of ride. So with all that said, like there's kind of the quick edit that I can make, which is just to basically take it, color treat it, and just throw it up online. But I've also wanted to expand that to just be better and more comprehensive of like of the sound and have it actually sound the way I want it to, have it like properly mixed and this and that. That's more time intensive and it just takes a lot.
Justin can do that. I know Justin. Come on,
no, of course.
Pick your heels up, bro.
Yeah, of course. But so I've gotten in this cool flow where it's like, like say, we had a great show at Grass Pop or something like that, and we played, whatever song really well that night. I'll be like, okay, I want to make a specific cam of this song because we really nailed it. Yeah. And I'll basically just like get all the raw tracks and just like trim it to what that song was and send it off to my friend Will Yip, the amazing Will Yip.
Unbelievable. I hit him up before this and I was like, "You don't live in Nashville, do you?" And he was like, "No, I don't." Sadly.
Yeah, I know. I love Will. Will's like one of those guys that I just wish I lived near because I feel like if we lived near each other, we'd hang out all the time.
Yeah.
But I hit him up because it was the first time I wanted to like present something. I think it was from when we played Vakken last year.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was one of the most epic shows we've played in the last 10 years. And so I wanted to showcase it correctly and not just the raw GoPro audio. Yeah. It's like, I want to showcase this the right way. And Will's just one of those guys who I know, and we've done some things before where I've kind of hit him up randomly, like, can you get me can you get me out of a bind in a pinch? Like, for example, when I made my one of my signature snares, I wanted to record it properly in a studio, show people what it sounded like, in that setting, and it just so happened that I had the time, and I was already planning a trip to go to Philadelphia, and I just hit him up randomly And I was like, hey, can I bring my snare to your studio? And can we just do a quick, like 10-minute like demo of this? I'll come. Like Justin, Justin lived in Philly at the time. And I was like, Justin will come film it. We'll just be like in and out, whatever. And he's like, absolutely, bring it on by. So Will has always been down for those like jump down the rabbit hole kind of guys. And I love him for that for many reasons, but he's just always been like that. So when it came time to be like, okay, this is a little more in depth, but you're the guy that I trust with like, how I like to do this stuff. I know you will know what to do with this. Like, can you mix this? Do
you just get the stems from your front of house guy?
Yeah.
And, the latest YouTube videos that you've done, that's got Will on it.
Yep.
Nice.
So, and I'm always telling him, like, let me know if I'm being too much of a nuisance, if I'm throwing too much at you, because I just love the way, we do this. And it does showcase, like, I'm able to show my playing in a way that you wouldn't really be able to see otherwise. And it's like, when you're able to kind of not necessarily like strip away the veil because you're not hiding anything, but like when you're able to give that perspective that nobody else gets, Justin gets it. That's really it. So to be able to provide that in a way that I feel like, does give people something to tune into on Friday night is like that's a fun thing to give away. I think it's cool.
Like back in the day before any of this, like who wouldn't have killed to just see imagine there was an option to watch like a 80s Dave Lombardo from behind. Like there wasn't. So it's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you find when because I love recording myself, obviously I'm a fucking peacock man, but I mean like, look at it. But I mean like drum wise, I love recording myself. Like you touched on it slightly a bit, but like, because I can see with your goalie stuff, I can see there's two double-edged sword. I can see like, oh, I'm speeding up there. And at the time I don't realize it. And the next show, sometimes it bums me the fuck out, but the next show, going into that section, I can go, oh, well, I knew I sped that up last night. And then I don't speed. I consciously try and pull back, and then it's easier. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that objectivity is everything, because it doesn't lie. It just, and you use it as a way of like, I think it's like, because I have to balance that with like, it was the energy of the moment. It was we always call it the temperature of the show. That's one thing that's always been really important. I've found it to be important in any context that I play, but especially in Slipknot. We always talk about it's just like it's that instinctive moment that we're living in, where because we're not playing to a metronome, we're just listening to each other.
Got a question on that. That's coming.
Sure, yeah. So we are living in that moment, and to me, my favorite music and the music that I just respond to is always that like frenetic, feels like it's a train that's about to go off the tracks, but it doesn't. Like that's an important element to capture and have it be like purposeful and driven, like with intent. It is intentional that it's like, wild and crazy like that. But it certainly is up to, the moment. And as the guy kind of driving the pulse of things. Sure. I mean, when we're we played a show in Amsterdam, a couple weeks ago, that was like, it was one of the hottest, most humid shows we've like ever played, and we've had a preposterous amount of pyro on this last tour. And the ceiling was like just low enough to where like
I was indoors.
Yeah. So when the pyro goes, it's like it raises the temperature and then it doesn't come back down. So every time it blasts, it's just getting like hotter and hotter and hotter.
Oh, I don't even think about that.
Dude, it's so by the end of the show, it's just like you're just cooking. And the temperature, there's even like a temperature shift or like a difference between the guys in front of the stage and then us on the top. Even though we're only like whatever it is, like
it rises.
10 feet, not even 10 feet, 8 feet maybe off the ground, it's like that much hotter up where we are, and it's right by our heads and stuff. So it's like when all that stuff feeds into it, you start to lose that objectivity, because you're not, we're not playing
You've
to
got
anything
to survive.
Predetermined. Yeah, it's like it is total survival mode. I mean, so much of Slipknot does feel like survival mode,
Yeah.
in a good way. And so that's all to say that it's like, I think if stuff feels like it's like totally crazy and off the rails and it's wild and it's fast, faster than, than it is on the record or whatever, like we kind of always reference it's like, oh, well, that's live tempo. And it's always feeling the temperature of, that's what we call it, the temperature of that night, that show, that moment, and
in that case, the literal temperature.
Literally the temperature, yeah. And when you're getting into those moments where like you can't breathe because of this thing on your face and you can't, it's just like,
fuck, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
You're telling me it's really hot and I'm like, yeah, it probably is really hot. You have a full mask and boiler suit on.
Yeah. So all that stuff kind of feeds into it. But to bring it back to what we were saying, the objectivity of being able to reference something that it's like, okay, that's going off the rails in a way where, where I'm losing control of it or whatever. I'm able to kind of analyze that. And just like you said, like I draw it back to being an athlete where you can objectively look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
How can I improve? How can I, alter what I'm doing? What are my how am I doing this mechanically where I can, just observe
just
it.
Spot something and go, oh, what the fuck am I doing there?
Exactly. Yeah. So I find that to be a helpful tool. And I think, as I can track even the progress of like one song, like I probably play Duality much different now than I did 10 years ago, and I would be able to look at a video from 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's cool.
And balance it against it and be like, do I prefer what I do now? Do I prefer what I did then? And, I think there are a lot of musical choices made like in the moment that it's like, oh, wow, that felt cool. And I'm going to kind of follow that thing or whatever, moments where we intentionally like put on the brakes and all of a sudden it's a crazy slow down gear shift, whatever. Cause that's one of my favorite things that we do is like a lot of moments often feel like this like slingshot that it's like, it's all about tension to me. And I think that's one of my favorite things about, what we're doing is that there are so many moments to create tension and like on purpose space where if this guy's ahead of the beat, but I'm behind the beat, it makes that note like so much fatter.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's just, I'm able to witness that by analyzing like what I did in the show the night before and be like, oh, that really felt cool. That really felt like I sank into that kind of slingshot moment.
Yeah.
And I think you feel that impact,
I couldn't do it, bro. Like I have it written down there. I can see it from here. I have the word click and then I have the word anxiety written after it. Like I couldn't do it. Let alone playing to that many people in general. I don't think I could do it without freaking out. But without a click, like if there will be people listening to this that don't even know what we're talking about, a metronome or a click is a beep noise, basically, that the drummer will play. Most of you know this, but come on. My mum and dad, they know it. But your dad certainly knows it.
Yeah.
But like and it essentially keeps you in time. It keeps traditionally maybe the drummer would play to it, keep you in perfect metronomic time. Now, when you play a show live, for me at least, there's a complete correlation between the amount of bodies in the room and how fast I want to play. And I can't do it. I can't play without a click. So like, I'm just wondering, was it ever a discussion or were you just on board with no click? Because I know they'd never played to a click.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I would have tried it. If it was me, I'd have got in and I'd be like, anyone mind if we play to a click?
Yeah. No, initially, there was never any kind of conversation of like, do you want to, do you not want to or whatever. It was just like this is just what we do.
Yeah.
So originally there was never a conversation. Excuse me. There has been like, and it's not to say that I'm resistant to it or never would or whatever, because I find there's advantages and disadvantages to like every tool that we have at our disposal. Because I'm a big fan of bands that use it and drummers who use it in a way that enhances things without distancing yourself from your bandmates in a way where you're not like all of a sudden, because you're listening to this predetermined thing, then you tune out the guitar players or you tune out the vocalist or whatever. Like I've had that experience before where you start to focus on the thing rather than the chemistry there of trying to make an impulsive, one of one moment, for better or worse.
That's a good way of putting it.
So, but with that said, it's like, and I also have had live experience, like my whole time playing with Bruce, I did play to a click. What's really cool about that situation is that it was a click that could be varied at any time based on what Bruce was basically musically dictating to me and to the whole band.
How did it vary?
Wild. So, I had to learn several hundred songs for that experience. And I mean, learn in the sense of like, I already knew a lot of that because I've been traveling with the band since I was a kid. I've been watching them play these songs hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
So,
and everyone knows Bruce Springsteen songs, so there's a lot in there.
Yeah. The minutia was important to dial in, but so there was a lot of homework that I had to do, but a lot of it was kind of like in my head anyway. But so with this whole catalog of songs, every single song that in Bruce's catalog and covers, like there's so many songs that he would pull out at any time. They all have like charted out like, oh, Born to Run is this BPM, typically. This is the general BPM that it should be at. Depending on, like we're saying, the temperature of the moment, he might count it off a little bit faster or a little bit slower. And what I would do is he would count off a song. We'd all start it, and I had two buttons. And this is actually, I was piggybacking on my dad's system because this is my first like formidable touring experience. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interject really quickly for people that don't know.
Sure.
Max Weinberg.
Correct.
Your father.
My dad.
Plays for Bruce Springsteen.
That's right.
There we go. Continue. Two buttons.
So yeah, and to kind of connect to where it got to this point, he was the drummer and band leader for the Conan O'Brien TV show. He had to be in two places at once when the late night program became the Tonight Show. Yeah. And Bruce had a tour starting, and it was at the same time, so he had to be in two places at once. So then I got asked to cover for him. And I was 17 at the time. And so
100 songs, 17-year-old, 100 songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like 300 to start with for sure.
Oh my God.
It was ridiculous. But, and that's my family. Like that's my blood family, to this day. Like, I mean, I was just spending a couple weeks with them in Europe, and it's the same as it always has been since I was a little kid, But so anyway, I was piggybacking off of my dad's system where he had two buttons to the left of his hi-hat that he would click with his left heel. One started and stopped the click at the press of a button. Yeah. The other button signaled to my drum tech, his drum tech. It would turn on a light that would signal to him, match what I'm playing now, because that BPM that's been predetermined that he would Born to Run's coming up, so he would put up the Born to Run click in my ears or in the whatever program he was running.
Yeah. Sorry, Springsteen or your drum tech?
My tech.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so he would like we'd finish a song and be sustaining that last note. He'd pull up the next tempo on the Dr. Beat or whatever. Yeah. And then, but some nights it'd be like that click is I'd turn it on and it's too slow. Like it's Bruce counts off every song. So then I match that energy of where I can see, and he's oftentimes like pulsing with his heel, and that's where I know where the tempo is. That's where he wants it. And everybody in the band, like, it's a much different experience to Slipknot in that with Bruce, it's all a flying V right to him. Yeah, and everything starts and stops with him. With Slipknot, it's just 9 guys all pushing forward at the same time. But so if I tell him with that light, match what I'm playing now, I'm going to match Bruce. And then in 5 seconds or whatever, I'll click that on and it'll be the tempo that I'm playing to match what Bruce wants. And then we're set for the rest of the song.
But this is blowing my mind. But like, so for a time, are you turning the click off and matching Bruce, or are you just like ignoring the click?
I would start the song and play the first couple bars. Like once we're in the meat of the song or whatever, I would with my heel, my left heel, I would turn on the click as we're in the song.
Yeah.
If it matched close enough to what I was playing, I would stay with it. If it was jarring in some way where I'm playing ahead of the beat or I'm playing ahead of that click, but I see it's what Bruce wants, I would turn it off and then hit that light, and then that would signal to the tech, okay, match what he's playing now with the tap tempo thing.
But Bruce doesn't have the click.
No, it was only me and perhaps other people who were on ears as well. But Bruce isn't on ears.
That is so, because it's never going to match up perfectly. That's such a skill. Because you will have to, because even when you turn that on, even if it is the speed, Bruce doesn't have the click. So he's going to be very slightly off. So you need to listen to him musically, bring him to you but whilst after you've brought the band to him, right? Because it's different from the click.
Yeah.
Panic.
Yeah, but it's nice in that it is like variable in that way. So you do get a little bit of that like that one of one kind of experience where if you're a fan, which their fans are wild, you know, they go to 30 shows in a row and stuff. I do as well. Yeah. Like when I'm especially this year, you know, they're back on tour and I'm trying to see as much of it as I can. And every night feels vital and in the moment. And I think it is because they keep that looseness about it. But I think what's so fascinating about the way, you know, my dad approaches the instrument, and especially, you know, when he's playing with Bruce, it's like they have such this telekinesis that's happening in so many ways. Like, you know, I was very fortunate, and, you know, obviously, you know, it's like I'm family, and that was why I was able to, you know, why Bruce and the band asked me to fill in for my dad with that. But like, he's the only guy who can play with Bruce in that telekinetic way.
Yeah, they've been doing it for how long? Like
since 1974.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have this shared brain that is just, I've never seen anything like it. Like, Bruce will shoot him a look and he just knows exactly what that means. I mean, that might mean we're playing a different song than is on the set list, and he's like, I got it. And he knows what song it is. Like, that literally happened like 2 weeks ago. I watched that happen. I'm like, how do you do that? That's insane.
Do you think any of it passed down to you when you were filling in? Did you get any of that? Not to get all witchcraft, but I'm pretty witchcrafty.
Yeah. I would hope. I mean, I definitely had to, as I was learning, as I was going, because you know, to be able to deliver on what that show necessitated, it was like, you know, and Bruce told me at the beginning of the tour, he's like, you know, our commitment is to this experience that he's like, we know you know it because you've been watching it forever. Yeah. But we're not, he's like, just because we're choosing you does not mean you get a pass or you get it easy or whatever. Like, and I knew that, and I wanted that. I wanted the full experience, and I wanted to try to the best of my ability to rise to that occasion of what had been asked of me. Like, that's a lot. They took a real shot in the dark because I'd only been playing drums for 3 years at that point.
No way.
So,
and there's nothing worse than disappointing your dad either.
No, and my uncle, you know, my uncles and aunts in that band, it's like, I didn't want to do a bad job. So they knew that I was taking it seriously, and Bruce was giving me a list of like 5 songs a day to learn on the way to a show. And then
extra.
Oh yeah. On top of like, so, you know, we met up prior to the tour as we were kind of experimenting with this idea of what we were going to embark on. Cause it was a big ask. It was a lot to undertake. He gave me a list of probably about like 200 songs and was like, this is what we're definitely playing through the course of this year.
Did you write like site charts or anything? Or?
For some, yeah. For the very like nuanced, much of his like earlier material, I think before it became, you know, with Born to Run, I feel like his songwriting took this stride of more the storytelling, it became more about the story of the song, less about, guitar gymnastics and stuff like that. There was more of that on his first 2 records. But we still played material off those records that it's like, there's songs that are like 13 minutes long and there's all these changes and it's very proggy and avant-garde in that way. So yeah, I definitely I wrote charts and stuck them onto my floor tom to what is this,
Yeah, I'd have to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I did that for pretty much everything. And I mean, that truthfully became how I I think that actually gave me the tools for working with everybody who I've played with ever since. Say for example, if Jim from Slipknot had an arrangement, and this is very true. This is exactly what happened when I started playing with Slipknot. He had a wealth of material that became our first record we did together, and it was kind of he wanted to kick me in the deep end of here's all this stuff I made. Go into that studio, go into that live room, and just do what you'll do to it. You have 20 minutes to learn this song or whatever. So that's what I would do, and I think I honed that muscle memory or whatever it is that we kind of get into, and I'm sure you might be able to relate, is when your bandmates are kind of here's a sketch of a song, it's verse and chorus and bridges and whatever, and you kind of figure out okay, I don't know how to write music or read music.
Oh, okay.
So I just write bouncy riff,
I do that
X2 or whatever,
I can read music, but I always revert to that.
Yeah,
the thing that your brain will remember the quickest is the best.
Yeah, death metal blast, stomp mosh part,
Slayer beat, stomp mosh part, one of mine as well.
Yeah.
Slayer beat, which means
Slayer
ride
beat.
bell. See, you it.
Yeah, exactly.
We could read each other's charts.
Yeah. So I had to do that every day for 5 songs a day before the show, and then 2 or 3 of them would make it into our set that night. So that got me to learn songwriting habits of whoever I was playing with, and that was really cool to be able to be oh, this is how he constructs songs typically, or this is how the second verse will then morph into the chorus in this interesting way, and he does that in a bunch of these songs or whatever. And that's how I kind of learned oh, the habits of songwriters, and I take that, then okay, I see what Jim is doing here, how he's kind of thinking this will morph or whatever. And that was what I think was my initial, when we started jamming at first, that was kind of how I was holding on by the skin of my teeth of just okay, this is what it's like creating new Slipknot material, as we were just kind of figuring out what this record is going to be, what our dynamic is and stuff. But it was all that kind of muscle memory and stuff, I think I was given that jump start through the whole experience with Bruce.
I can't believe how many songs that is. I think if I was young, if I was 17, I'd probably, and you did that, and someone, I mean, it's Springsteen, but if someone was learn 100 songs when I was 17, I'd be fuck yeah, I'll do this. 36, I'll go, I don't know, I'd second guess myself. I actually, funny you said about Jim, I made a joke once with Jim that fell flat on its face, and I don't know if he hates me. It was it's surprising that we haven't met, because I'm friends with V from when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then I came on 3 shows of the 2020 tour in the UK.
I feel I remember seeing you backstage, and I was like, oh, there's that guy. And then he just
that was whatever. But I actually jammed with Jim on your practice kit, the Roland kit backstage.
Oh, okay, cool.
At that thing. And I don't know if it was just me being British or it just wasn't a funny joke, but we were just jamming. It was me, him, and V. I was just on the kit, and V was there, and Jim came in and picked up a guitar. And we had a cool jam. We were making some stuff, and then Jim turned to me and was like, "I think if we did that thing with what you were doing with the kick drums, with the guitar going in and out of that would be really cool." And I went, "You do know I'm not just Jay without the mask on, right?" And he just stone cold, didn't laugh, didn't do anything, and I was like, "Oh no,
that's funny.
I'm fucking blown it." But that was cool. That was the first time, actually. I've seen it since, but that was the first time that I've seen a full jam set up backstage.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're incredibly fortunate to be able to travel with that. Yeah.
What do you? How long are you on it?
Well, I like to be on it for a couple hours a day. lately, especially with this tour that like we just did, we're getting to shows like 2 hours before we play, just with all the festival travel and all that kind of stuff where you're, flying in the day of a show. And that stuff always really stresses me out because I don't get into, I feel like, and this probably goes back to me being a goalie because I'm not very superstitious, but I have, my things that I like, my checklists that I kind of like to go through throughout the day of making sure one, I'm able to
reel it off.
Sure. Well, hydrating correctly is like that. I learned that, pretty early on, especially just with such demanding music. It's like I have to be well hydrated, or my arms and legs just are like cement blocks, and then end up playing.
That's the worst. Like this. The forearm cramp.
Yeah, it's like I could get away with that in Madball. I could get away with that in Against Me, but like not with Slipknot. So I learned pretty early on that like I just need to be constantly drinking water, and then if you have like this last tour where you have like 2 or 3 hour drives in a van to the show, then it's like, okay, then I don't want to be the guy peeing in a bottle in the van and stuff. So, your routine is just like thrown off like that. But I typically try to eat the same exact thing,
Oh, you're real superstitious.
Yeah, like almost like same thing, eat the same thing at the same time. Like all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
like,
nice. I had Matt Gasker in here yesterday, complete opposite, because I'm like that.
Really?
I'm neurotic with it. I'm like, and it's dumb because if I play really good, I'm like, well, I had a banana.
That's exactly it. And it's all from like, oh, I had a great show. Well, so I always have a banana, like probably about like 2 hours before we play. Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff,
Well, it's good that someone else has that kind of.
But then you have a shitty show, and you're like, well,
I had the banana.
Yeah. But so there is a lot of that. But so my preferred way of doing it is like I'll wake up, have an easy kind of afternoon, just having coffee, drinking water, probably go up and check out my drums. If there was something that was bothering me about my kid, I'll address that or whatever.
Have you got coffee cut off time before stage?
No, I'll have coffee. Like if I'm like really dragging ass, I'll have coffee right before, like literally walking to the stage.
Same. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, and it's like all in service of the show. Like that's the only reason we're there is to deliver that. So if it's like, especially like late in a tour and we're all just like, oh man, like it's difficult to get that energy up. I'll do whatever, reasonably. I'll be having coffee.
But I'll do whatever legally.
Reasonably. So I'll be having coffee, and it's like, okay. And if I'm just staying up till 5 a.m, afterwards, it's like, well, my adrenaline doesn't come down until 3 or 4 a.m. anyway, So it's like, so I've become, I'm a late person. I'm a late night person just anyway. And then the rock clock kind of dictates like, just how I'm able to exist, or at least like find what works for me. So, because when I come off stage, like I can't eat for a couple hours afterwards, or it makes me sick. Like, I get kind of weird like that. But I prefer to have, a half hour or an hour of like playing with a metronome, earlier in the day and just doing kind of boring rudiment stuff, whatever. And then, but I haven't been able to really do that lately with our festival travel and stuff. On a headlining tour where we're like in buses and stuff, that's a lot easier to do.
It's a lot easier to just sleep as long as you want as well.
Yeah, dude. And sleep and hydration are just, it's like, it's cliche, but it's just so true. It's like if I get enough sleep and I get enough water in me, then I'm good.
I'm a terrible sleeper. And in order to combat being terrible at sleeping, like quite often I'll drink, and it's like, this is just no hydration and poor qualities with sleep.
It's tough. It's, and then that vicious cycle just starts where you're like, and sometimes, you don't get any sleep, and then you wake up at 7 at night and you've got like an hour to get ready. Like shit just sucks. But anyway, I like to just kind of get sticks in my hands around like 3 in the afternoon if we're playing at 9.
Yeah.
And then probably around like 6 or 7, I like to start just getting a sweat going, because I hate hitting the stage not being already like hot. Not being in a sweat in the show already. Like by the time we play the show, I'm already an hour and a half or 2 hours into what feels like playing a show. That's my preferred, way of getting into it, is I want to hit the stage feeling like I've already played like 15 songs.
That's great. You don't get tired from that. Mario Gojira does the same thing. He's like, I play the song.
I feel way more tired if I don't do that.
Yeah, like I've got a rigorous warm-up routine, but it's still like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. But it's mainly feet based, and I don't play anything near as complicated as you on my feet.
Well, so what we've done lately is, and I find this to be great, and like you said, like having a mobile studio set up. Originally, the idea was born out of like, well, we have the space and the ability to travel with kind of a mobile studio setup, have electronic drums going into Pro Tools. And that was born out of, we were in such a creative mode coming out of creating the Gray Chapter that we just kept going. And, Jim especially had like all these riffs going. Like there are songs that are on our newest record that were born in the first tour that we did after the Gray Chapter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. So it's like songs that have been gestating for like 8 or 9 years or something. So that was like the purpose for having that room, the jam room. But then it just kind of morphed into our warm up room. And, much like Metallica does with, their well-documented tuning room, it's like, this is an amazing tool and we're able to have this. Why don't we get in there a half hour before we play? Especially towards the like at the beginning of a tour, if we're playing a new set list, we want to do the stuff that we're, that's freshest to us, that we want to feel like we, like, oh, what's that riff? Or like, oh, what's this beat that I'm playing in that? I forget. We're able to just hash that stuff out. And we'll, usually play, it's like myself, V-Man, Jim, and Mick, we'll run through 5 songs, 4 or 5. Like on a good night, if we have enough time, we'll do like 4 or 5 songs. And then we're just like in it, and I'm ready fucking to go. Sweaty. And then we get out, and that's my favorite way to start a show. The first song goes great, and then everything is just, I'm stoked. The worst is when you're like under the gun, you just have to put on your shit and go out there. I feel like that just smokes me out of the gate.
Yeah, like, I played terribly. I'm in my head for the whole thing.
And there are guys who totally do that. Like Dave Lombardo, I think he'll have like sip of coffee, get his drumsticks, walk into the stage, and he's just in it. I'm like, I marvel at that. Like, that's amazing to me, but I can't do it.
I watched Inferno from Behemoth.
Oh my god!
Have 7 shots of vodka as his warm up.
Are you kidding?
And then fucking smoked it.
He's the man.
It was
we did a bunch of tours with. That's where you said, yeah, we were playing with Behemoth. I love touring with Behemoth because he's such an interesting.
I've never met him. I saw it. This was like, I'd say this was 2007, like old Behemoth. So maybe he's stopped now.
He's the man. Like we've had a couple brief conversations, and he's just really, really sweet, amazing at what he does. And my friend has done merch for them, and she would say how like watching him is like watching like an orchestral conductor. The way his fluidity,
even
the
you
way
doing that
thing, it's that thing.
Him.
It's like that's my favorite thing about like when you get to spend time with these guys and like really watch and study these things and see them play the same set over and over and over and how they're approaching it. I'm like, that's such a unique way that I would never think of approaching the drums, but it's so that guy, and I'm fascinated by it. And it's Inferno is just one of them. Like same thing with Mario. Like I would get to watch Mario when we were on tour at Gojira, and it's just like, oh, you freaking nature! Like it's just so sick.
Just the goat.
Yeah.
I was super stoked when he sat down, just because I thought, he's a little bit older. He's not massively older. He's a little bit older. He's got a family. Mm-hmm. And when I was like, how often, which I'm going to ask you in a minute and we'll go straight into that. I said, how often do you practice when you're at home? And there's like a lot of it, talking to you, talking to Mario, like talking to Matt. Like, I mean, most people I have on here is because I really want them on here, but it's like, I want to know these things. Yeah. And I'm like, someone like Mario, I'm like, you're at the top of the game constantly, but you're in a life position that I will possibly be in later on. So how often do you practice? Like thinking, does he slow down? He was like, probably about 2 hours. And I'm like, and how often do you do that? Thinking he's going to be like, every every weekend or whatever. And he was like, oh, every day.
Every day.
And I was like, when you're home from tour, every day. And he was like, yeah, every day. I was just like, and that's why. That's why you're a freak.
Yeah. No, he's the man. And especially when, when you're able to, like, when you have that discipline and him especially, he's gonna laugh if I do an impression of him. But he we would be on tour. And I'm like, hey Mario, like he's like walking the stage. I'm like, yeah, like so stoked to watch you guys. And he's like, oh Jay, I'm so tired. I'm so hangover. And then he just goes, and then he's like, I don't know about today. We'll see, whatever. And then he just goes, I'm like, you're amazing. I love.
He's
Mario.
a glovesman. You're not a glovesman, are you? You're a glovesman.
From time to time, I hate playing with gloves. I only do it if I've opened up really painful blisters on my hands. That's the only time I'll do it.
And you can just switch between the two, because I tried once because I love the way they look, and I was like, post-pandemic, I was like, I'm gonna come back glove guy. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have shirt off, bleach blonde, gloves. I'm doing like a little glow up, mid-career glow up.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think, should I do a band practice with these things? I went straight in, sweating inside the glove.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason I'll use drums is just pain management. Like if usually it'll happen on my index finger or maybe like my thumb.
Do you do a fingerless or a full?
Full, like the Zildjian gloves.
Shout out Zildjian.
Yeah, totally.
Eric Gross says hello.
Oh, awesome. Hey, Eric. So I'll do that pretty much out of necessity, just because it's less painful to do that. And I tape up my fingers, mainly my fingers that are just in contact with the stick, with a Band-Aid, and then this kind of like a foam rubbery kind of wrap that just keeps the Band-Aid in place. Because with the Band-Aid, I find that it doesn't help me grip the stick, and then I'm holding it tighter. Excuse me, and that just leads to like wrist issues.
Yeah.
And whatever. So then I started putting this Next Care wrap on top of that, and I find that allows me to relax my wrist a lot more, and I don't have to hold the sticks nearly as tight, and I don't develop blisters that much, especially at the beginning of a tour, just because like as much as I'll practice at home, nothing will be the substitute for like that first show.
That sweat.
There's nothing. You can't replicate.
There's people that are like, oh, it's bad. Like I've posted before when I've torn my hands up from a show that was too hot, not warming up enough. Yeah. Usually just I was on vacation for a week before the tour, and then I went straight to the drums, and people would be like, you should learn this technique, and you won't get those blisters. Blah 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 blah. It's like, no, go on the stage. And then tell me that, like, you can't prepare.
Yeah, but it definitely is, like you said, it's like a tactile difference. Like it definitely adjusts how I play, and I have to get used to it really quickly. And the only reason I'm trying to do that is just because I'm trying to let a blister heal so that I can get these things off of me as fast as I can.
Do you ever use a liquid bandage?
Oh, I fucking hate that stuff.
Just the pain, or just
the pain?
It's insane, isn't it?
It's like. Yeah,
it works pretty good though.
Especially when I get the gnarly ones. There was one time where this whole section from like that span from like in between my thumb and my index finger, from here to like all the way to my middle finger, it just lifted up, and it was like
where my shit is.
Deep red. It was like deep red, like probably a couple layers of skin.
Oh, I've seen one of those. Yeah.
Oh my god, that was the worst.
I got the one like I got to the Tool album one, like literally right in the skin.
So, and with that, I didn't really know, it's the beginning of the tour. And I remember I did it because that happened because we started a tour in West Palm Beach, Florida. I remember it was like traumatic because I remember exactly where we were when I did it. And to get moisture off my hands, and so my sticks aren't just flying all night, I'll use Mountain Climbers chalk.
I've tried this as well, and same thing.
And it's, it sucks. It's like, okay, your sticks aren't going to go flying, but all of a sudden now it's like you have no moisture on your hand, and you have this wood and whatever. So I remember that tore up, and I would have to put like Neosporin, multiple gauze, athletic tape around my hand, and then try to play a show like that. And it's just like, shit sucks. So then finding gloves, it's like, it's okay, and I know the difference. I know how I kind of have to adjust to the tactile feel of what that does. And part of it is actually kind of cool, where I feel like a fast roll from my snare and up onto my rack toms, I have more of, it gives me kind of this more feeling of like stable control, but at the same time, I feel this like separation from it. You know, it's really weird. I mean, I had to get, it was an adjustment going to even having anything on my fingers. You know, like I used to not have Band-Aids or anything as like a prophylactic measure against blisters. But now I pretty much never play without it just because I hate blisters that much.
Oh wait, so you'll preemptively put it on?
Yeah. So it's takes me like 10 minutes before
if it fucking works, it works.
Yeah, and I have my whole routine of like, get my coveralls on, get my mask ready, I put on my makeup, I put on all my tape things, and I put on my mask, and I'm ready to go.
Put on your own makeup. I guess it's eyes and
or like our kind of panda that we do. Yeah. So it's a whole routine of.
I thought you would have had a guy. I thought you get Justin.
Like we go into a makeup room, like.
Well, I don't know, no. Or even just Justin.
Justin doesn't have to do that. That's not in his job description.
Well, you just told me he wheels the drums into a fucking thing. But the minute you said that, like he doesn't have to pack down the drums, I was like,
on the occasion that so say we play like a one-off show, I mean, I'm very fortunate to have Justin in my corner because he's just like the best. This is the first time he's drum teched for another person.
He's the best. He's been on the Downbeat.
He's the man, and I just knew, like, I hit him up as a friend because I was just like, I think you're going to be good at this, and don't feel any pressure to do it, but I just, knowing you as a friend, I would love to have you in my corner with me. And I just know you approach the instrument in a way where it's like, I don't really care that you've never teched before. I just know you're going to be great at this. And he's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he's a drummer as well. I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad. I feel like I got him fired from his band when he was on a Downbeat. He was telling me about it being, he was in his band. Not even going to say the name of the band. And you can go through the episodes and quickly find out. And he told me he didn't have a drum tech, and he was doing like Brixton Academy and stuff. And I like laughed so hard, and I kind of dogged. I guess I dogged on the band a little bit or something. But in our conversation, some elements of the band that I found, or like him being a drummer, I don't know if I didn't agree with or whatever. I went in on it. And then shortly afterwards, he was no longer in the band. Maybe it's unrelated, but I was like, fuck, I hope that wasn't me.
Well, I think, having someone as capable like Justin, in my corner is just like, takes a lot of guesswork out of it. I know it's going to sound great. I know it's going to feel great.
Meticulous.
Yeah. And, but I do feel for him when we are doing those shows where it's like, you got to set up that whole thing and then I play on it for an hour and a half and then you got to tear it down. And then that's fucking gnarly. So I'm super appreciative, and we're lucky that, we are able to, and that goes down the line for our entire crew. Like, we have the best fucking crew in the world. Many instances where they've gone so far above and beyond, for the guys that they cover in the band. And it's just like,
super friendly as well, because we watched a bunch of shows. Again, we didn't meet. We played a bunch of festivals together, and I watched Side Stage, Slipknot every time I could.
Yeah,
the whole crew just so pleasant.
That's
like
true.
Just really, really, really nice. The guy that's head of security, I can't remember. Just like super nice.
We have the best people around us, and that that helps it be sustainable. That helps it be just move along well and have everybody in a good mood, knowing that everybody, I don't know, just is a good person, and it's all like relatively, even of the last 4 years, like, Justin came on board with us with our first tour since COVID, which was also, that provided its own set of just like difficulties, and I feel like we were one of the first bands of playing the kind of venues that we do and whatever, and of our size, that I feel like we were kind of leading the charge of like, you can tour intelligently and safely and, you know, do it by the book of what all these new guidelines are that we have to abide by. And we did it without incident, and it was sick. We had great shows, and our crew was a huge part of that. You know, we couldn't have done it without the pro crew that we have.
My second, I mean, obviously I'm very, very lucky that this is my only qualms. My second biggest thing that COVID took away from me. Number one, my girlfriend's spleen. That's in the top spot. Blood clot from having COVID and it like gone. That's depressing, not that. Number two, we were supposed to do Knotfest at Sea.
Oh,
Stray was on Knotfest at Sea. Boom, gone.
Could you imagine, like, okay, so when
my God,
when we all saw that we were going to do Knotfest at Sea, I was like, that sounds like the most insane idea.
Sounds like
ever.
Designing a. Are you talking about mid-pandemic or just?
Oh, just like period. Like that sounds like I mean, I was very excited for it, and I think a lot of us were, but it was just like knowing us and knowing just like how difficult it is with our machine and just all the people involved. I mean, you know,
trying to do it on a boat.
Whatever. Yeah, it's just like, okay, it's going to be everybody in an enclosed space on the same boat, and it's like, I was like, I don't even know if we can do that. Like that's insane, you know.
And I think you should leave, Corey. Yeah. Thank God.
But it was kind of, you know, it was. I love that we, you know, I love that we even attempted to do it, and it's sad that it wasn't able to happen.
Sad for me.
Yeah, man. No,
but if I was gonna design an incubation chamber for COVID-19, it would be a boat.
Yeah. Oh, for
with like
sure.
A cruise ship.
For sure. Or none of us would have gotten it, and we would have been our own traveling private little rock and roll oasis.
They might have kept us there. Like, we're going to stay here.
And then it was not life.
Have you seen that movie, The Triangle of Sadness?
No.
It's on Prime. Woody Harrelson.
Okay.
Lost at Sea. That's all I'll tell you.
Okay.
It's awesome.
All right.
If you're into like, it's not an A24, but into like just slightly quirky weirdness, which is, I don't want to typecast you, but
I'm into quirky weirdness.
I think you are.
Yeah.
For a man who said he doesn't like the pain of liquid death, talk to me about how many tattoos you've got in the last month or whatever.
Let's see. So I try to take advantage of like wherever I'm gonna be, just based on touring or whatever. So it's like, okay, you know, we're coming to Europe for a tour. So what do I have that's unfinished that I can get done? And I was like, I have quite a lot that needs to get done. And maybe this is born out of me just being like super cheap, and I don't want to have to buy my own flight back over to Europe. So I'll just piggyback on, you know, on my activity with the band and be like, okay, I'm going to, you know, end up on the tour here. I'll just get my tattoos finished and then I'll go home. So I had to finish my arm with Thomas Hooper.
Unreal artist.
Yeah, he's the best. I'm so fortunate to have been able to connect with Thomas and his family and become friends, and just like, he's one of my favorite artists, period. And he's become, you know, a very good friend. And, you know, I'm just so lucky to be able to poke his brain about art and whatever, the way he looks at the world. And you know, when you spend time with him, you almost start to see how he sees the world, and you see things around him and the spirals that are in, you know, plants around you and stuff. And you're just like, oh my God, I share that with a lot of people that I'm just drawn to what they do creatively, and you spend time with them and you start to kind of see how they like see the world. And it kind of makes these like micro adjustments in how I see things, you know? So I had Thomas started on my right sleeve like 2 years ago or a year or whatever, like a year or two ago. And then we went as far as we could this January, back when he visited the States, and he was like, I have like 4 more hours to go on you, but like, you're just cooked. Like your arm's like a bleeding stump right now.
How long did you sit for?
For that was like this blade, everything except for the fire here, really. I don't know. That might have been like 7 or 8 hours, something like that.
No, I'm not learning 200 songs. I'm not sitting for 7 hours.
Well, my first tattoo, like I started getting tattooed kind of late. I feel like I got my first tattoo when I was 24.
Oh.
Because I'm just like, with stuff like that, I'm incredibly indecisive, and I can talk myself out of, whatever idea.
Is that because you're an artist and you think maybe I won't like this, or
maybe? Yeah, I kind of had like a rule of thumb with myself of like, I forget who told me this, but they were like, this is before I started getting tattooed, and they were like, if you have an idea and you really want it, wait a year, and if you still want it, you're probably going to want it for a longer time than that for the rest of your life.
Great advice.
It's good
tattoo
advice.
wise, I wish I'd had that advice.
Yeah. Well, and I had a lot of ideas from when I was like 15 that I was like, when I'm 18, I'm
getting like, nautical stars.
Yeah, no, and band logos and what, like, no, it's not, so I'm glad I waited. But what struck me in this moment, we were on tour in Budapest, which I knew had these statues that were on the cover of my favorite Neurosis album, Given to the Rising.
What a fucking album!
Yeah, we could be here for like 4 more hours talking about that album. But so these horses with these like war tusk kind of things that are incredible in Hero Square in Budapest.
I didn't know that's where it was.
Mm-hmm, cool. Yeah. So I went, and that's one of my favorite things about like touring and traveling is to be able to see stuff where it's like, I never would have gotten the opportunity to be in Budapest randomly. And I'm going to go to Hero Square and check out these statues that are on this album cover from this album that I like. So I was there and I was 24, right? It was like, I think my first European tour with Slipknot. And I was like looking at this statue, and I was like, I must get that tattooed on me. And I was like, and it must be done by Thomas. I didn't know Thomas at the time.
Nice.
And here's a funny story. So I was like so inspired, and I got back to the hotel, and I immediately called Rock of Ages, a tattoo shop that I knew he tattooed at in Austin. And
was it Steve Byrne that was there as well?
Yeah. So Steve, Tony Hundal, Katya Ramirez, and
what
awesome,
a lineup.
No, yeah, and Thomas, and like just it's like one of the greatest communities of tattoo artists. They converge there. But so I called. And I'm like, hi, I'd like to schedule an appointment with Thomas Hooper. And then the guy answering the phones, he goes, all right, cool, call back in 2 years. And he hung up.
That's like American Psycho, like the Dorsier scene when the guy just starts laughing.
And I was like, oh, man. Because I didn't know anything about tattooing or like the world or whatever. I was very excited about this like idea that had just come to me. So I hit up a mutual friend who I knew Thomas, and I was like, hey, I would never ask this of you if I didn't really have a passion for this. And I like, could you please ask Thomas if he would tattoo me or whatever? And so then Thomas was like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, but so anyway, this goes to just, length of tattoos or whatever. That tattoo takes up my entire side. Because I told him I was
side.
Like,
you went straight in on side.
Yeah.
You are by far one of the most psychotic individuals I've ever met, in a good way.
But you get that stuff over with, and then
True.
Number one,
I only have painful places left.
Yeah. So we've approached this from opposite ways.
Yeah.
Number one, I was like, I hear that ribs are terrible, but I don't know any better. So this will just be the
baptism of fire.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a reference point. If I had gotten, I don't know what's a less painful place to get tattooed. Maybe like up here has been less painful.
Super easy. Give me that again.
Yeah. So it's like, if I had started with that, and then I went to this, I would have been like, "Oh my god, just stop! Me. Like I'm not doing
That's
that."
Me.
But if I start with this, then I won't know any better or whatever. So he did both of my sides, like kind of initially or whatever, and then I started to
in one sitting.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, I did he did that Given to the Rising kind of piece, and it's like it's inspired by that.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I love about Thomas is that he'll take a seedling of an idea and then filter it through the way he perceives the world and the way he does stuff, and he'll just do something that's completely his, where I'm like, that's better than anything I ever could have imagined. So he did that, and he was kind of getting a feel for who I am, and I think that's one of his massive talents is he learns like who you are and what he feels like you can have, what will suit you on your body for who, like what suits you, you know? And he doesn't do that with just me. He does that with everybody. It's like, it's a true talent of like, of just like human relationship and how that translates to art that you're then putting on someone forever. So he did the horse here, he did a goat, and like there's ravens that go down from there. So I got both my sides done. And then but yeah, so once I had that done, then it was kind of like, it was kind of the typical, like it takes you, 5 years to think of your first tattoo, and then 5 minutes to think of your second tattoo.
Seconds.
Right. Yeah. So that was kind of my experience. And I have taken a little bit of my time with it, but as I've gotten to meet more artists through this, community of just like learning more. And when I was getting tattooed by Thomas, I'd check out the other people at Rock of Ages and learn about where they, come from and their tattooing history. And then I would just learn more. And so, for instance, I met Mishla, who tattoos in London. We met and he did a piece on the inside of my thigh. And then it took me a while to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with like big real estate. Cause I didn't want to just kind of have like I didn't want to really connect little things here and there, which is rad. And I do like patchwork kind of stuff. My wife has some kind of like disparate little pieces that kind of fit or whatever. But for me, I was like, if I'm gonna go for like doing my back, I want it to be a cohesive, unified, fucking bold thing. So that's like Michel's strong point. Like he's such an incredible talent with this, lack of a better way of describing it, kind of like woodcutty kind of way of approaching tattooing, where it looks like he's like sculpted this piece out of like cutting wood. Super interesting, and the way he tattoos is different, where it's not just like like I have my back completely lined, but like when he did my thigh, it was like a little bit of lining and then shading and then more lining and then more shading. So it's like very different to how I had normally been tattooed, but that's the way he builds his pieces, which is kind of cool. So anyway, I got this arm finished. At the end, I went right from, oh my God, can I tell you about the last like 48 hours of our last tour?
I need everything. You can tell me whatever you want.
This was insane. So, we played our last two shows of this tour that we just did. We played in Portugal late. I think we were on stage at like midnight, and I was already kind of having like a freak out of a day because we were playing with Fever 333 with Thomas Pridgeon, my all-time favorite drummer,
unreal drummer
of all time, like
nicest fucking guy
first
in
time,
the world,
dude.
as well.
First time I saw Thomas was on a tour for the Bedlam and Goliath with the Mars Volta before the album came out.
Damn,
I didn't know anything about him, and my dad and I went to Terminal 5, and I'd known the Mars Volta, and actually I got into the Mars Volta through my sister, through the album, two albums before that, Francis the Mute, and I love John Theodore's playing. But then I never saw them play with him. And then my dad and I went to Terminal 5 in New York City to see them play the Bedlam and Goliath. And both of us were just like, I'd never seen anybody. It was like watching like Buddy Rich for the first time.
That Waxum Ultra intro.
I mean, it's I'd obviously had many drummers who inspired me up until that point. I think it was like 15 or 16 at that show. But that was when I made this like hard turn of like, I didn't know that you could do that on the drum. Like I didn't know that was possible. And then, luckily got to meet Thomas and become friends. And, so anyway, this show in Portugal, we're playing with Fever and Thomas is there. And then Meshuggah's also playing and Thomas is there. And I'm just like, I saw both of them before the show. I was like, can you guys just both leave so I can play this show in peace, knowing that you're not here, you're not watching me. I I have this yin yang.
Wait, you didn't actually ask him though? Did you ask him to go?
In a joking way, but I'm like 20%. I'm like 80% joking, 20% kind of wishing that you guys weren't here.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, I get, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's like, I get that, you know, that duality of like, I'm super pumped to be playing with, you know, shows with musicians I really admire and really respect. But then I'm also like, fucking like, you guys mean too much to me, where I'm like, I don't want to be doing what I do knowing that you're also here.
Yeah.
You know, like there is a part of me that is seriously like that I'm like, I just don't want to be also thinking that like, oh, I botched that fill and Thomas saw it or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? Like that kind of weird psychological psych out kind of thing that we tend to do when, you know, sometimes.
Well, yeah, but also I think it's probably, you know, there'll be kids listening to this who Jay Weinberg is there, Thomas Bridgen or Thomas Hart, and like I think it's cool for them to hear that you have moments like that you're the drummer in fucking Slipknot.
Well, and Ben, I think it was Ben Kohler who told me, because I've said similar things to Ben, and he's you know, we play with like Converge and stuff, and he's like, no, like don't. He's like, be psyched. Like, we get to do this together. Like, This is awesome. And I'm like, that is the way to look at it, I suppose. It's
tough to actually do that. But I had exactly those experiences, but separately. We did 3 shows. 2 of them got, one of them got cancelled, but we did 3 shows in a festival with Meshuggah on this same run that we just did there, and Thomas Pridgen as well.
Yeah.
Luckily, the Pridgen one for me was, I didn't know that he followed me. Like, obviously, he's Thomas Pridgen. I follow him. I love everything he does. But like one day out of the blue, I got a DM where he was like, and this is when I knew that he followed me. He was like, hey, bro, what's your workout routine? And I was like, and I had one of those moments like, fuck yeah, Thomas Pridgen. And then again, before this run, he hit me up and was like, hey, man, what? Like, I've got this new rock gig. So it must have been just pre-fever. He's like, what cymbals do you recommend? And I was like, to have one of your idols like asking you shit is fucking
like, I don't know, maybe you would know. Guy who got endorsed by Zildjian at 9 years old. You know,
so sick. Listen, I know what you're thinking, Craig, don't interrupt the episode. I've got to interrupt the episode. I also know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm watching this episode, Craig, and you look insanely healthy. You look quite energized for someone who admittedly was going out every single night while in Nashville. How have you done that? It also looks like your gut health is supported with pro and prebiotics. Your immune system has been built with vitamin C and spirulina. It's almost like you've been drinking AG1 by Athletic Greens every single GD day of your MFing L. Life. L for life. Well, thanks for saying that, because I have been having that. AG1 by Athletic Greens is a foundational nutritional drink containing 75 concentrated superfoods, antioxidants, and adaptogen extract. Every time I say that, I struggle to say antioxidants. There we go, that was a really good one. Good alliteration. I take AG1 every single day, 250 milliliters of water, 1 scoop of AG1, helps me fill the gaps in my diet, helps me stay energized, supports my immune system. Don't have a coffee some mornings. I just have a lovely 250 ml of this stuff. I love it. I do genuinely love it. If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs, essential when you're touring. With your first purchase, go to athleticgreens.com/the downbeat. That's athleticgreens.com/the downbeat. Check it out.
You know, his recent, it was like 4 years ago, his Zildjian live performance that he did.
It's one of the best videos on the fucking internet.
We were recording an album in the other room at the same time.
That's cool.
And I was gonna go over and watch, but I got the like from our producer, I got the you know, you're recording this record, you know, like you can't be distracted. And I was like, no, you're right, and I am there to, you know, to do our thing. I'm not there to get distracted or whatever. But when you're in these like creative hives, it's like fucking, you know, here's Aaron Spears and Thomas and you know, Sput is arranging the whole thing or whatever. It's like, I'm like, okay, whatever. But so I didn't get to watch it in real time, but then I saw it afterwards. I'm like, thank fucking God I didn't go into the other room and watch Thomas just annihilate everything. And then me go back into the other studio and be like, oh my God. Like I just,
no, you might have got inspired.
I grapple with that. I think like, I think just as like any artist or any musician, I think kind of tends to, maybe not, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Like you view someone who's like, that's like my hero, like Thomas is like, he's the man. And so then when I'm like working on stuff that I've brought to creation and tried to, push as far as I can, you can't help but just be like benchmarking it against what Thomas just like did in that thing. And you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But I think that's just a creative struggle of just like, whatever, just, and then you kind of have to shut all that stuff out and just be like, no, I just got to be me.
I got to do my shit.
Yeah. And I, I've had many instances where that's been my life. It's just like, fine. That was one of the things that I was very fortunate coming into Slipknot, was knowing that these guys have my back in like, we want you to be you. And that's why we asked you to join our band. It's just like, you do you. And so I've very much appreciated that. But, where was I going with? We were at East West and doing that, and Thomas. Oh no. So, so we play this show in Portugal. Back to the Portugal story. So we play this show super, super late. We get done at like 2 a.m. We have to fly to Spain the next day, next morning. Get to the airport, fly. We have like a 3-hour drive. It's that festival. Have you played at the Resurrection Fest? Amazing festival, but it's a challenge to get to because it's like a 3 hour. It's like a 3 hour drive from the nearest airport. Excuse me. So we like, we land. Obviously, I can't get into my my warm up thing. We go basically 3-hour drive to Resurrection Fest. Play at like midnight, I think, and I had an hour or two to kind of just like catch my thoughts and just like do it. And then play. Got done at 1:30 or 2 a.m. Then like a 3-hour drive back to the airport.
Yeah,
and then
that. You never sleep on that one.
And then the early flight the next day, I basically went right to Thomas Hooper.
No,
from there.
The worst.
Yeah, so I went right to Thomas from there. He has a studio kind of outside Brighton. And he even hit me up. He was like, because I got there like late at night, and he was like, hey, if you want, like we could just do it tonight. And like I had, layover, whatever. And I'm like, dude, I can't do a tattoo tonight. Like I'm so smoked from the last like 48 hours of this whole, and it was like the end of the tour, long festival tour of just, you don't get sleep. You basically don't sleep for a month, or you don't sleep correctly as much as you'd want to. So anyway, then, he did like 4 hours on this and got this over the finish line, which I'm psyched on. And then I had a day to rest and go back up to London. And then I met up with Mishla at Red Point to just bite the bullet and just get my back done. He did the lining of it last year after my summer European tour. I went right to London, got my back lined out. And then we were going to try to push on with like some of the shading, but he was like, I'm going to need like 4 days with you to do this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I definitely don't want to do this. Yeah. I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, and he was like, well, we could, he thought that the lining was going to take 2 days. It actually just took 1. It only took like 6 hours. So
only lining, I have my back lined and it isn't even finished. And it's not even, I have my back, like I've got a back piece in progress and it's like, butt and back, and it's all blood lined currently. And Jim Gray, shout out Jim Gray, amazing Japanese eyes, Japanese tattoo eyes. He's not Japanese. He like the way he does it is he'll essentially sketch it on your back with really light lines, which still fucking hurt. Yeah. Then does all the color. Then at the end lines it, and I am dreading it. Yeah. Like back, and by now you've got a bunch of tattoos. Back for me, worst. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. So this one goes onto my butt as well.
So
that's hot laser beams.
terrible. Well, especially, and then when it like presses up onto your like butt bone, it's just awful. I found the lower back was way worse than the upper back.
Yeah. Like across shoulder blades, there's like an area where it's like, oh, this isn't actually that bad.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm like, I'm like 3 days having just had my back finished. Oh, almost finished. I have like a couple things left to do, but
The gorilla.
So, yeah.
Before I found Jim is my girlfriend's brother.
Okay.
And before that, I wanted to go. Do you know the guy Moore's tattoo? He did this on my legs with very specific traditional style. Cool. Amazing tattoo was.
Yeah.
I wanted a gorilla by him. A gorilla back piece is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And I wanted it, but then I met Jim, amazing Japanese stuff. Lives in Glasgow. I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's just do it.
Yeah. So back when I got it lined, he was like, hey, we booked 2 days. I booked 2 days with him, and he's like, hey, I think we were probably about like halfway through the lining, like probably like 3 hours in, and he was like, I could probably finish this today, and then we could do some shading tomorrow. And I was like, I kind of don't want to just like walk the earth with like, I didn't know when I was going to come back. I was like, I don't want to walk around with just like a partially shaded thing. So I was like, I'd rather commit to let's just do the lining now, and then at some point down the line, I'll come back on a European tour, and then we'll just do the shading. So after Thomas finished my arm, I thought he was gonna be able to do it in 2 days, because I thought he was like overselling it. Like, I'm gonna need 4 days. I was like, you could probably do it in 2.
Yeah.
And then we did 2 days after I got Thomas to finish my arm, and he was like, I definitely need more time than this, because he just packs in the black so much. And I respect him for that, but I also hate him for that, because he's just on the one section, like 10 minutes on like every square inch.
And then when they come back, there's just a little bit more.
Yeah. So we got the bottom half of the shading pretty much done, and he was like, I'm gonna do what I think is gonna be the worst for you, which is your butt and your lower back. That'll be the worst for you, and then it'll be a little bit better for your upper back. I was like, okay. So we did 2 days, 8 hours each day.
Back to back. This is what, last week?
No, this is about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
This is right after our European tour. So the way I was able to kind of like dance around this and kind of make it like, okay, this will make sense. We finished our European tour. I got my arm done. I got half the back shaded. Then we had 2 shows a week later in the States where, and it just kind of happened where I would get my tattoos finished in the UK, and my dad with the E Street Band, they were playing at Hyde Park. And so I was like, okay, I'll make a whole trip out of this. Like I'll get tattooed. I'll see them play a couple shows. My wife came out and met us there. We traveled with the band to Copenhagen, saw them play in Copenhagen. My wife went with my mom to hang out in Europe while I went back to the US and played these couple shows. Did that, and luckily that was like a week after I had done my back, so it was pretty much like, you can play a show or 2.
Do you take time off after you get a tattoo?
I mean, it depends. Like, I don't like to get tattooed on tour, like during like an active tour. Like, I don't like to get tattooed and play that night or the next day. I have before, but I don't prefer it. Just because I don't know what it's gonna physically do to me. Like I got my ankle tattooed while I was on tour in Europe, like the day, on a day off. Yeah. And I could play in it. I don't feel like it inhibited my playing, but I don't prefer it. But so then I came back, did the US shows, went back to went to Italy, had a family vacation, hung out with my wife in Italy, and then went back to the UK, finished up the back piece. And
jet lag with days of tattooing.
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah. So then it was like 2 7-hour days back to back to almost finish this. He has a couple dot gradient things to do and a couple of the exterior lines that he just wants to bulk up. And he was like, I could do that. He's like, I have like 3 more hours left. But he had been working on like the last place he finished up where I'm like feeling pretty exhausted after 7 hours was like my right shoulder. And he's like, I'm going to have to go to your like lower left back. He's like, you're going to hate it. Like, cause you get used to that like the motion of it, like, okay, my right shoulder is killing me now, but I can focus on that and kind of, I can deal with that. But then all of a sudden, if you're going to jump to a place on my body that's like totally different, I'm like, oh, fuck that. Thomas did that to me once where I did my shin. He did this like Joy Division piece on my shin and then blacked out my kneecap because I had a piece there that I wanted to kind of just black out. And then he was like, and neither of those were like all that bad. But then he was like, I'm going to absolutely murder you for about 20 minutes because I need to finish this part on your ribs. He's like, I know both of those weren't bad. This is going to be worse than both of those, but it's only 20 minutes and then I'm done. And then he just did this like circle on my ribs that was just absolute torture.
It's like all I've got left.
Terrified. But when you like switch like body parts like that, I'm just like, I so would have rather not done that. But so anyway, I have like 3 hours left on that, but I'd just rather get it done.
No, you don't have to tell me. Any numbing cream? Any
Bactine while he's going.
Our savior Bactine is the fucking one.
For sure.
I hate it if I get tattooed by someone new sometimes. I guess it doesn't happen that much now, but like the resistance to using Bactine, like earn your stripes shit. No, we're gonna get. Okay. I'm gonna sit better if I'm not in so much pain. Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, quite a lot, you probably don't know. Bactine is like an antibacterial spray that has a mild anesthetic quality to it. It's not like it's not getting rid of everything, but it's just like.
It helps your stamina. It helps you be able to, because like my whole thing was like, I don't know when I'm gonna come back to the, hopefully it's soon that we come back to the UK or Europe, but it's like, I don't know when I'm gonna be back. So I'd rather endure, 30 hours throughout this month and just get it done rather than like have to come back and forth. I'm like, I'd just rather get it done. So, and you get into that flow where it's like, okay, it's like 10 minutes of hit, because it only works if your skin is open. It only works on tattooed skin.
Yeah, you have to get it done.
So you have to endure somewhat, and then as he's like, so a lot of this piece is like, it's a lot of dark shading, and then a lot like he hadn't done it in a long time in his tattooing, but this like heavy dot work where it's like, it's shading with just very thick dots. Gnarly.
I was gonna say, what does that feel like? Because I haven't got anything.
Just little individual stabs forever, just like for a long time. But so, what he would do, and I'm grateful for it, is that he would, do a lot of the lining, or the shading rather, which sucks. But then he's able, you do that for 10, 20 minutes, and then he'll be like, okay, the skin's open enough here, I can hit it with Bactine. And now when I'm doing the dots around that, it's like, it sucks, but it sucks a little bit less. Yeah. And you're able to kind of catch your breath again, reset. And then as he moves on to a different part, then you have the stamina to endure that or whatever. But, it all sucks. You just got to do it.
You just be enduring. You got super hard, hot sets. You got pyro, 48-hour flights.
Yeah, if there's one thing that being in Slipknot has got me accustomed to is learn to be okay with just being uncomfortable like all the time.
I mean, that's also just being in a band.
I agree.
We should probably talk about drums.
Okay, yeah, sure.
We both play the drums. I get told off for not talking about drums enough.
It all feeds into it though, doesn't it? Like your creative life and the things that you love to do, find ways to. That's how I feel. Like, tattooing inspires me as much as like painting does for me, or whatever. Watching another band, it all funnels into drumming or making music in some way.
Luckily, as I'm a professional, I've got a seamless way to get this into this. Let's talk about your snare drum.
Sure, yeah.
Like, off the top of your head, do you know the specs and stuff? Just explain the drum to me.
Sure, yeah. So it's, your standard 6.5 by 14 inch shell. That's about the only standard thing about it. It's a 48 ply maple shell, made by SJC Custom Drums. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's absolutely my baby. And it was born out of just like, I had been not struggling, but, just experimenting to find, really getting my own sonic footing within the band, and, we had made the Gray Chapter. and I was proud of it. On that album, I had used a bunch of. It was actually really cool. We can gear dork out here.
Yeah.
The kicks and toms were the kicks and toms from the Black Album.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So and you don't like. I underestimated how I would be so taken by like when I was introduced, because I was jumping onto a moving freight train, you know, when I joined the band. So all this stuff was happening incredibly quickly. And I had never, you know, rented equipment to make a record before, you know, or whatever. So, so that was all new to me. And I'm, you know, we're making this record in LA, and there's this guy, the drum doctor, and I hear he has a cool arsenal of drums. And so he brings these drums. Ross, he's awesome. He brings by these drums, and he's like, yeah, these are the drums used on the Black Album. I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? And so he puts the kicks just in the room on the floor, and I hit the kick, and I'm immediately like, that's sad but true. That's Enter Sandman. That's the drum. And I couldn't believe how like obviously, you know, Bob Rock and Lars playing, you know, made that sound what it is. But it was incredible to me that it sounded that much, me hitting it, like little old me just hitting that drum. I was like, motherfucker, that's the Black Album kick drum. So
I would have nutted. That is like my
insane.
ideal kick drum and kit.
So the kicks and toms for that record were from Metallica's The Black Album. And then one of the snares that I used for most of the record was the Nevermind.
The bell brass.
Bell brass snare.
Oh.
Yeah. Bro. So if you listen to that record, most of what you hear, and that was kind of, I thought it was really cool. I was like, wow. So my drum sound with on my first Slipknot record is a cross between the Black Album and Nevermind. That was very cool to me.
I've been searching for that sound. I have a bell brass, Tampa bell brass, and I retrofitted a lot of stuff of it to be as much of a replica of that snare drum that you use. The Drum Doctor's Terminator. So I got the hoops. I changed the lugs out for like similar stainless steel ones.
Yeah.
It's not Nevermind, but I'm getting close.
I've always been on the search for one, and actually recently I found two, and my wife very generously was like, "You can get them." I was like, yes.
Wait, you got?
I have two. Not that. I don't know what year that bell brass is, but I got one from the late '80s and one from the early '90s. They're both very different snares, but they have
14 by 6.5.
Yeah,
With the hoops.
Yeah, one has the bell brass hoops. The one from the late '80s, I think it's like '86, has the bell brass hoops, and I think the one from '92 is the one that has I'll send you pictures, but it's like the continuous lug. The other one has like, they kind of look like sonar lugs. It's like they're like two circular kind of tube.
They're the ones things that I got a guy called VK to make those.
Oh, I love those drums.
I've got him
amazing.
But he's basically the guy that turned my Town Bell Brass into the Terminator copy.
So, you know, I love collecting stuff like that. Like, I don't really have that much of a collection. Most of my collection is my SJC stuff that I love, but I do like to get some things that are like replicant of what I've recorded, and the recording experience of The Great Chapter was just like incredibly special to me. Obviously, you know, it was my first record with the band.
You're young as well.
I joined the band when I was 23. So I was like 24. Whatever it was. We finished that record in May or June of 2014. And then I turned 24 in September. Yeah. So
you grew up in Slipknot. I did all of my growing up, like real, like I'm a man now growing up in like the last, like, you know, my 20s. Well, it wasn't the typical growing up. You learn stuff then, but then you're learning how to be a real human whilst being in the biggest metal band on the planet.
Well, I definitely found that experience of, you know, the fight or flight, being kicked into the deep end of rock and roll was like, to draw a parallel back to, you know, my experience with Bruce, was that the bigness,
That's right.
The bigness of that situation was kind of, it all kind of goes away when you're able to strip down the situation and compartmentalize and break it down to be like, this is just music. It doesn't matter how big the crowd is in front of us. You know, all those like variable factors. It's like, and that was what I learned with Bruce, is that he treated it so like, it's just music. Like, and that meant so much to me to get that lesson. Yeah. Like it, you know, my first formative touring experience, besides like, you know, being in a high school band and booking little tours myself or whatever, was with them. And to have it be with like people I've known since I was a kid, who didn't want me to fail. You know, they wanted this to be a good experience for me. I was really lucky with that. And the fact that it was so huge, you know, I was 18 and we were playing for, you know, 60, 70,000 people a night or whatever. The fact that they were able to help me put all that aside and just focus on what's happening on the stage, which is enough to be concerned about. That helped me, I think, for everything else that followed, you know, most notably Slipknot. It helped me just kind of like put the pressure of a situation, the pressure of expectation, you know, a long history of a band with, you know, a rabid, passionate fan base of which I was a part of.
There's that wonderful photo.
Yeah.
The photo heard around the world. Simon will put it up here.
Yeah. Which I didn't know that was actually, I didn't know someone caught that. That literally, it was Halloween night. The only reason I was dressed up as Corey was because it was Halloween night and they just happened to be playing near me on Halloween night, and I went trick-or-treating as Corey.
Unbelievable.
And I was at a show, and you know, because they played Conan, and they were like, my dad was like, you guys are fucking crazy, like my kid's gonna love you guys, you know. And they were like, like come on out to a show, like whenever you guys want, whatever. And so to his credit, he took them up on it, and so I was there. I was immediately enthralled with, you know, it was that was right after Iowa had come out, and I'd seen, you know, we went to a show before that summer before, and I was completely taken by it, and just thankfully someone was there with a video camera, and it actually came out. I didn't know that it was going to come out on a re-release of the Iowa album, like a DVD, and it was just there. I picked it up, and I was watching the DVD. I was like, oh my God, somebody got that on camera. I didn't know.
Is that post you joining Slipknot that you
No. This was,
you were just like, oh, that's me.
Yeah,
cool.
It came out. There was like a 10th anniversary reissue, so that would have been in 2011. I remember I was on tour. It was so funny. I was on tour with Against Me. We were in Australia at the time, and that came out. And I went to a store and got it, and I'm watching this DVD with Andrew, our bass player, and I'm like, dude, that's me. That's like 10-year-old me. And he I remember like we had a laugh about it, but I had no idea that it was in this DVD, and that was, you know, 2-3 years before I joined the band.
Crazy.
Kind of crazy, but you know, many things in Slipknot are like that. That's one of thousands of moments where like a lot of crazy energy,
synchronicity,
a lot of synchronicity with this band, and that's just one of them. But it's all over the place. Like that's some of this kind of energy that's really like, once you're in the middle of it, you start to realize like how connected all these things are, and you kind of just have to accept that it's like, oh, all this stuff is like, you know, all that like time is a flat circle kind of stuff. Like we're very much aware of that within the band.
Have you got any like thoughts on that? Like I'm pretty into magic.
Sure.
And like manifesting and all this.
We're getting away from talking about the snare drum.
I know, but I don't want.
Fine. But like, tell me about the magic.
Well, just like anything good that's happened to me, I believe I've willed it into existence.
Right. Yeah.
And synchronicity is a huge thing in that. And I'm noticing more the older I get, the more weird coincidences and stuff. Like I used to be. I don't want to put you on the spot here or anything. Especially in America, especially in Nashville, where I wasn't allowed to say "God damn" at a karaoke night last night.
Is that right?
In fact, Jeremy wasn't allowed to say. Jeremy wanted to do break stuff, and they said, "I'm sorry, you can't drop any GDs." And I was like,
Of course.
GD? Goddamn. Anyway, so like the older I get and the more this synchronicity stuff happens, I used to be like staunchly atheist, like the most atheist person ever. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know about like man in the sky or the Bible or shit like that, but like, I think there's something else. This energy is.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of along a similar line of just like, you know, I don't know what I don't know. But I like to think that if you're open to seeing signs in things, you can hopefully take some positivity away from it. That's kind of how I like to, you know, see things. Like my wife and I just the other day had like a string of things, like all in one day, of like kind of crazy stuff happening and there, you know, changes happening, whatever. But there was this crazy example I'll give you. You know, we just watched a couple shows of Bruce and the E Street Band where they're covering a song by a group called the Commodores called Night Shift. And Bruce made it for a recent record, like a soul record of his. Anyway, they're covering it. Chloe and I had never heard this song in our life before we started seeing the band play it. We've seen them play it a number of times on this tour. It's it's like a soul tune.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you know, we're kind of like dealing with some stuff in flux. And then all of a sudden we heard on the radio this song, Night Shift, in the restaurant. And I was just like, I hear this song. I'm like, wait, that's Night Shift. We'd just been seeing them on tour playing this cover song. I'd never heard it before in my life. And all of a sudden we're kind of like dealing with some life stuff. And then like, I hear this song and we were both just like, we're both very open to that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's a sign. That's like something I don't know if it's a faith thing or like a belief that's like, if you're open to seeing those things happening and you're paying attention, that's some kind of cosmic weirdness. Like, I don't know where it comes from, but I think if you're open to it and you're open to the magic of it, you know, I like to think that there's something in there. I mean, it's more exciting than maybe believing like, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, maybe it's something. I don't know.
I'll tell you my one. I don't want to get on a real fucking downer, but I'll tell you my one. And it's like, the minute that happened, I was like, okay, this isn't. So Tom Searle from Architects, who passed, we're at his brother's, like, you would call it a bachelor party. We call it a stag do. Stag do. You know, the man is well traveled.
I have enough British friends. Yeah.
So we're going out for drinks and we're like on the top of this like cliff where we are, and there's a beach underneath and there's no one on the beach. And there's one kid on the beach actually, just walking along the beach, and we're like sharing a joint up on this hill thing, just chilling, and no one was saying anything. But at the time, I was thinking like, Tom should be here. Like that was, and I imagine everyone was, because it wasn't a party atmosphere at that point. It was very chill. The kid that's walking on the beach, and there's a photo to prove that we weren't like massively high or whatever. Only kid on the beach writes the name Tom in huge letters across the entire beach.
Wow.
And no one said anything.
Yeah.
And like, just as we were leaving to go, everyone just went, that was weird. And someone took a photo, and it's like, and now I'm just like, I don't know anything anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something in that, you know, and it's like, it's not up to me to figure out what it is, of that synchronicity, but I like, at least it gives me some, because I've had moments like that in my life too, where I'm like, it gives me some semblance of comfort, whether that's, you know, real or I'm just making it up, I don't know. But I think if you're able to sense these things and have it affect you in a way where it can comfort you, or it can give you some kind of, you know, maybe that was Tom checking in some way, maybe, you know,
I just like
whatever.
Maybe I don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's perfectly fine, you know. But I like being open to that kind of stuff. So anyway, my snare drum.
I'm sorry. It's
no.
It's partly me. It's partly just the nature of talking. We didn't fucking know each other, so we're like getting to know each other publicly,
dude. So and I love that because like we can gear talk as drummers and as musicians and stuff, but the reason we do what we do is because we have reached out to those parts of our brains that we're trying to connect to something. We're trying to search for answers to things that we don't know. And the way we best know is to create something out of nothing and give it all our energy, give it all we got. And that somehow makes us connected to each other, to ourselves, to our bandmates, to people that we might never meet, but there is something there, so it's all part of it.
And
that's
you've got to be
music.
You've got to be a very, very specific type of person to be a drummer.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, you do the most work, you have the most gear, you have the most athletic job on stage. Like, you have to be a very certain type of person to be okay with doing that long enough to make a career out of it.
And I found comfort in that, like the responsibility of what our position in the group is. I feel like as a goalie, always the weirdest guy on the team. Drummer, always the weirdest guy in the band.
Drummers and goalies.
There's a very similar last line of defense. If you have a bad goalie, your team's gonna suck. If you have a bad drummer, your band's probably gonna suck. Yeah. It's just like that's just how I kind of view it. Getting it back to the snare. Okay, so I was finding my sound, and Black Album. Never mind these drums. Okay, so I had experimented with with these amazing drums and mostly metal snares in the studio for that album, and then we got on tour, and I'm trying to figure out what works well. I tried maybe a titanium drum. I feel an acrylic drum. And I was kind of getting my bearings about what was working and what wasn't working, and I wasn't quite getting the response and like a quickness out of those, that real pop, because everything with us is like it just has to have that quickness, in and out, pop, pop, pop kind of thing. Not much resonance or whatever. And I wasn't quite getting that with like acrylic or metal snares. So Mike from SJC. Who was helping me kind of troubleshoot these problems. He was like, what if we bring it back to like early 2000s drive-through records, fucking, like early Adrian Young, Travis Barker type snare, very influenced by Orange County, kind of that, what we grew up being, I grew up being fascinated by, by watching a guy like Travis play, and how that was a very new thing. John Otto, even in some cases.
First record, obviously maybe not on the record, but Joey played Orange County.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like super, super early. There's like a couple of videos. He had like a purple and black thing, but I'm sure he had one of the holes.
So
did you put holes?
Yeah. So that was Mike's kind of intent. He's like, let's bring it back to this like early 2000s approach, fucking really thick shell. He's like, we haven't made any of these, but like, I think this could be really cool. They've done some like, heavy ply, like 15 or 20 ply, whatever. He's like, I'm going to make you one that's just so incredibly dense that it allows you, when you really crank it, it is that just gunshot of a snare. So he made this 48 ply maple snare with two 2-inch vents.
Love a vented thick wood snare.
Oh, don't even need to mic it. It's so loud. It's offensively loud. And, for me, it's like I have so many layers to cut through, two very heavy distorted guitars, gnarly bass, vocals, DJ, samples, the other percussive elements.
Fire.
Yeah, all this stuff. So, he brought that. It probably took a while. I think he made that in like early 2015, maybe mid 2015, and he brought it to a show. And I was like, that's everything I've been looking for. And I've been using not like that specific snare, but that type of snare ever since. So we developed that into becoming like, when it felt like it was the appropriate time to be like, let's create a signature snare drum for you, because this is clearly your thing. Like, you're not deviating from this much at all. Let's make this your signature snare. And that always would have been a really cool thing to do. And I'm honored that SJC felt it appropriate to do that they asked me like, do you want to make a signature snare? And I was like, yes, but I don't want to make it a lesser version than what I actually play. Yeah. So it was a little bit of a tricky kind of like, how do we do that? Because it has to be 48 plies. And I wanted to add my own things to it. I wanted to make all the artwork on it.
Which is fucking awesome, by the way.
Thank you. So that was important to me, that like, I wanted to have my hand in every detail about it, as much as I could, change the lugs or the throw off or the whatever. Like, I wanted to be involved with it. So that's what we did. And that, I think we came out with that, through the pandemic, I want to say. We had a lot of time on our hands to come up with projects, and just like, what do we do? What do I do with my time? I want to make a shit ton of artwork, which I did, and use that with SJC to just heighten this experience and like be able to deliver to anybody who wants that snare. Because I would have a lot of people say like, your snare sounds awesome. I want it. I'm like, okay, here it is. This is, it's an American made in their USA shop. It was very important to me, because I think, when I joined the band, I had to tell Mike something of, I couldn't tell him what I was up to because I was sworn to secrecy.
Because you were with SJC.
Prior to that, I had been with SJC for about 3 years up until that, or 2 or 3 years up until that point. And I told Mike, I was like, look, what I'm going to tell you is insane. The first and foremost, I can't tell you what I'm doing, but I need you to please, I want to stay with SJC. I want to play these drums and I want to grow with you guys. That was my whole reason of like being with SJC, is because I was a little guy and SJC was at the time a much smaller company than it is now. Yeah. And I was like, I want to team up with people who I feel are like-minded, come from the same kind of community, punk rock and hardcore and whatever, and grow together rather than, kind of just being a small face on a roster of like very amazing, well-accomplished drummers. I didn't really have any interest in doing that. I wanted to just start, I wanted to start something with somebody. So I was like, I want to play SJC. I need you to make me 2 giant double bass drum sets with 3 rack toms and 2 floor toms and a gong drum and a marching snare drum and like 8 snares. And I cannot afford that. So I need you to make it on the house. But trust me,
wow,
it's going to pay off.
And he said, yeah.
And Mike was like, I'll figure out a way to make it happen. Wow. And that's what we did. And that was the basis from which we were able to then grow from there. And I was like, it's always at the forefront of my mind. Like, I never want to take advantage of SJC's generosity and ask for too much or whatever. And we've even done things where it's like, I want to do something different, but I don't want you guys to go into pocket. So I actually I gave them back those drum sets that I used on, those first bunch of tours. In retrospect, I actually wish I held on to them, but I wanted to
What did they do with them?
They sold them, but not as like, these are, because at that time I was still kind of a secret guy, so they couldn't, and I wouldn't.
Does the person who bought them know yet?
Probably not.
Someone's out there.
I don't know.
History.
Yeah, I think SJC held on to the first kit that I used on stage with Slipknot. I think they did keep. Because I think Mike was
I'm sure I've seen it. Like,
yeah, I think they did keep that one, but like I had 2, because it was the same thing we do now, where I'll be playing on one kit one night, and then we fly to another place, and I'll play on that kit another night, and our A and B rig. So we were doing that back then. That's why I needed 2 at the same time. But so I think they kept that one, but one of them was just like, it wasn't advertised as what it was. It was just, I was like, I want a different drum set because I wanted to try just something different to find a better sound for myself. And I wasn't getting, it was like a Babinga kit that I wasn't quite happy with.
I'm not a Babinga fan. I don't know why everyone is.
Yeah. It's cool for maybe some stuff, but just for us, it was like I needed maple. And so they made the M5 shells for the kit that I used in the latter stages of our touring for the Gray chapter. But so I was like, I'll give this kit back to you. You sell it and make the money that you need to keep things afloat. Because I don't want you to just, just make me another kit, and then we're that much more money in the hole.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they sold it to like, I don't know, somebody, but it wasn't advertised as such. It's just like, these are just used drums.
Yeah. Used drums. I mean, pretty fucking used.
But
good
that's
for you
always,
though.
But that's always been the basis of like my stuff with SJC is every time we approach each other of like, let's do something, like let's make some cool shit. It's always been just what can we do that like is giving back to kind of our community of drummers. And that's why I really love, what we've built together with SJC, because I really feel like a part of it that, you've
definitely helped the growth.
Well, for instance, so just the other day, like I was chatting to a guy who had gotten one of my signature kits. So that grew from, just a snare drum. Then throughout the pandemic, I was like,
signature kit.
Yeah. So I was like, what if we did a whole kit? And I was like, not only what if we did a whole kit, I'll make all the artwork, right? But because when we recorded We Are Not Your Kind, my whole drum set was like mismatched. It was the same rack toms from the Black album, but then the floor toms were different, and then it was two different kick drums from like two different kits. I just mismatched everything. I thought that was really cool. So I wanted the kit that I made to once we released that record, I wanted that kit to be also mismatched. And I actually worked with Thomas. So all the artwork for the drums I used on the We Are Not Your Kind touring, which wasn't all that much, it got cut short by COVID, was all Thomas's artwork. So I worked with Thomas Hooper. He gave me a whole bunch of his art, and I just kind of retrofitted it around shells. And I was like, that was cool. And then I got to thinking, I was like, well, what if I do a kit that's all my artwork? And it'll just be an extension of me. And then Mike was like, I think Mike and I were both like, okay, and what if all the mismatched, you could make any piece of art be on any shell, so you can make all these different permutations. So there's 2 kicks, 3 racks, and 2 floors. There might be 50 of these kits out in the world, and none of them are the same. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. So then it took me, like whatever, the process of just like making all the different dimensions of artwork. And so I just met somebody, and with that, we've included an experience where if you get this, it's like, I want to talk to you about it. I want to know what drove you to get this kit or just a snare or whatever. So just baked right into getting the SJC kit or a snare or whatever, there's a thing. It's like, okay, and you set a time to talk to Jay, and then we're talking. So I was just talking to a nice guy yesterday, and I was just like, oh my God, and he's got the kit. I'm like, the green artwork on that kick drum, I'm like, damn, that looks sharp there. Like, I don't have that. I want that.
So the person who buys it got to pick where, or gets to, is it still a thing?
Oh yeah, it's ongoing.
They get to pick which drum things. That's cool.
So like the artwork that I have on my 12-inch rack tom, he has on his left kick drum.
But it's the same kit to the same specs.
Yeah, everything's exactly the same as what I use. And we were even hoping that someday it'd be really cool. We were thinking of like, I mean, this probably like gives away my idea, but like it'd be really cool if I could make stencils of figurative parts of my artwork, because it'll have like, kind of this washy, watercolor kind of background with a figurative thing on it. It's like, well, what if I do like the washy background? That's the wrap on the drum, but then we provide stencils of the thing, so then people can like use that and like spray paint on the drum, and they get to make their own stuff on the drum. That was like kind of an idea that we've been toying with, and we'll see if that happens. But
I would fuck it up though. I'm so smashing
the whole idea.
With shit. Like, no, I'm not fucking up my Jay Weinberg fucking.
But so and I wanted, so like I just wanted to go as far as we could with it, and then we kind of exhaust every aspect of what we're able to do with that, and then Mike and I kind of like high five, like, all right, we did it. I'll talk to you in a year about maybe another idea, but. So it's been really, really cool.
I met him recently, and he was super nice.
Mike's the man.
Yeah, he came up. He actually came up to me at a festival and was like, we got to get Jay on the pod, man. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, of course.
Sick.
And here we are.
And here we are. Yeah. So all that stuff has been, an effort in finding my own sound, what I like about some things, what I dislike about some things. And now that, because playing in Slipknot has been such a process of like self-discovery and what we're doing and what my space within it is and how I can make that uniquely me, like anybody does in anything they do or whatever. This has just been an extraordinary opportunity to then dive into the tools that I'm using and how do I heighten, so it's like the drums that I use on stage with us. It's all my artwork. It's all, just an expression of what I'm bringing to the table to like the nth degree and not to, disparage any other company, but it's like, I don't know if anybody else would be down to go on that journey with me because like Mike and I bash our heads against the wall trying to figure out these creative problems.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody else but him would be up for it.
Did anyone, I mean, they must have done, did anyone swim around when, yeah, of course, everyone did.
But that's why it was important to me that, I'm a big fan of many drum manufacturers and they all have like unique qualities. Like, it was really sad when Jeremy passed, because I was such a huge fan of.
Because he was an Orange County OG.
Mm-hmm. He was a builder.
He was a builder. An OG.
Yeah. So, and what he and Alon did with Q was just amazing.
No, I nearly went with Q before I went with Tama. Mm-hmm. But it came down, what it came down to for me? Because I wasn't joining Slipknot, I was joining Straight from the Path. So it was like, I kind of need this because I live in the UK, but the band's in the States. And Jeremy, we kept in touch. He was like, and I only had one other company that I wanted to go with, which was Tama. And Tama were like, we can give you 2 kits.
Yeah.
Like, and Jeremy was like, I can't match that. And I was like, I haven't got the money, man.
Yeah, no,
so
totally.
I've got to do this.
Yeah. And I love Tama. Like we're talking about bell brasses and stuff. Like that's, I'm a big fan of all these different companies for the unique things that they bring to the table. SJC just felt like, this guy's as psychotic as I feel I am with this stuff. He loses sleep over the same things I lose sleep over. We're going to get along great. And we have. I've been with SJC for 14 years now. Yeah.
And you know what, though? I mean, I'm a Tama guy through and through. Nobody come and get me. The SJC bell brass is pretty sick.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah. It's funny. I borrowed one. So I've been asking Mike to like, can you guys make bell brasses again? And he's like, maybe one day. But I borrowed one for a friend to use for my virtual instrument, the Mixwave thing that I did. So I borrowed one because I wanted to just supply everything I got. Like,
it really sounds like you, that plugin.
Thank
by
you.
The way.
I'm so happy with it. Again, like Justin was there with me through the whole process, and that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. Obviously, I've like captured samples, after a song, just in case you need to like fly one in because you flubbed a hit or whatever. But so I've done that, but never like at every single velocity.
So you did it. You actually did it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that was important to me.
So
like
a lot of people, they don't do it. They say they did it,
yeah,
but they don't.
Well, and I know that about that aspect of like capturing a virtual instrument, and have heard like, oh yeah, and like you don't even have to be there. I'm like, what?
And it's not
like,
me.
Why would you not? Why would I do that? It's not me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and so when I was approached by Luke Holland, who's awesome, and their team, and they were like, you'll be like, you're the guy, and you'll be in there playing. We'll have your drum tech, and so the reason it sounds like how I'm so confident in putting it out there is because it's like Justin was there tuning everything, and he's my dude who knows, like he knows better than I do how to get what's in my head sounding on the drums. Like he's that talented with that. I'm just hitting him. But it was really cool to do that experience where it's like Justin, it's funny. He would be like in the control room. It was actually while playoff hockey was happening. So I had like playoff hockey on the screen there, and I'm doing hitting a hi-hat for like 3 hours. And then we're like, yeah. And then dude, capturing the like the bell that I have, and just all like you just tap it, and then it has to resonate for like 3 minutes or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, it's
and
so
also,
thorough.
You have to do it for completion, but you know full well no one is playing the bell, programming the bell at one velocity, but you have to.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. Well, and
how many is there per velocity as well? There's like an amount.
Oh, it's fucking ridiculous. And there's like 10, I want to say it's 10 round robin. So for every snare hit, if you program like 10 snare hits at the same velocity, it's going to be 10 different at that velocity. So it's never the same exact hit. That's why I like it. And I've been demoing stuff with us for a lot of our new record. I was using other libraries because I hadn't made mine yet. But that's how I got used to like demoing at home. A lot of the end so far was like us file sharing. I would get something sent to me by guys, and then I would like play stuff using a library that I really liked and send that back. I'm like, oh, I'm learning how to be a self-engineer with electronic drums and, using my Roland kit. That's what at the time, that's what I was using to practice at home. I didn't have my acoustic drum set up at home yet. But that was a huge tool in making that record. And so I was like, okay, next time I'm able to do, or if we have to do something like this, hopefully there's not a pandemic, but I want it to be totally my sounds to where I can send something back to, Jim, for example, and that's going to be pretty closely resembling what we will capture.
He can hear what you would sound like.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's going to be what it pretty much sounds like. So that was really important to me. And so I was like, we're going to do my 48 ply, the metal snare that we did. I want to borrow this SJC bell brass. That's going to be in there. Kurt Ballou made me a snare, and I'm going to use that. Now I'll have these. I'll probably do like a software update with like these new bell brasses that I got. I sampled my dog, and
how do you get to the dog on the?
So that's how I was like, because Mario had done one, Thomas Pridgeon had done one, and I was next. Luke had done one, and so I saw what they did, and Mario had his artwork in there and stuff. I was like, this is really cool, and I know how these guys are so particular about this stuff. Like we're saying, like Thomas and Mario and Luke, like they're so dialed into the details, how I like to be. And that was the first time a project like this had spoken to me where I was like, these guys get it. And I want to be a part of this. And I was like, they're going to laugh at this, but I was like, okay, we're going to have my drum set. And then off to the side, we're going to have my dog in my dog bed because my dog is my life. I have her name tattooed on my arm. I love her to death. And I was like, my dog is going to be in here. We're going to sample my dog.
How many velocities of the dog?
Oh, like as much as any snare drum in the thing. There's like a lot. Oh, it was a whole experiment because I had to like get her quiet, like, and then I had to get her bark it. So it is literally, you can drag the thing up and it's like,
oh my god, that's
like
so fucking funny.
And since then I've gotten another dog, so I need to do a update. Yeah, so you can choose it just like you can choose a snare.
I did the maths in my head while we were talking about it. Just so if anyone doesn't know how many times you would have to hit the drum, this is why people sometimes don't go. But if they don't go, it's not them on the thing.
Yeah.
If there's 127 velocities and you're doing, you said 10 per, if you're programmed 10 at the same velocity, there's going to be 1,750 per drum.
That's insane.
And then obviously you just listed off how many snares. You've got 1 million toms, then you've got 1 million cymbals, and then you've got a dog.
Yeah, I have no idea how many times I hit
how
everything.
Long did it take?
We spent, let me see. We spent one day on kicks.
A whole day?
I think so. So we went in, dude, because I wanted beater options as well. So I played with the plastic side of a standard DW, just like what you get when you get a DW 9000 pedal. I used the plastic side, but I wanted, if maybe someone would want the felt side.
Yeah.
Do you remember it was like really popular in like the early 2000s? Those red like
Denmark?
cherry apple
Denmark?
Denmark.
Oh baby!
So I went and found some Denmark beaters because that's like a different thing, So I wanted that, and then I want to say we did one that's like a smaller head, that's a plastic side, that's kind of more like Chris Adler, Ashes of the Wake kind of sounding thing.
Oh, like the Axis style.
Kind of like that. So
what sticks do you play?
Vader. Yeah, which was another thing that I was able to design. Actually, when you had seen us on that 2020 tour, I was doing shootouts every night for my signature stick, where my tech would give me, I had like 3 prototypes, and he would hand me, I would have like I would walk to the stage with some, and then I'd play a song, okay, what's this prototype? I was like, I didn't really like that. Okay, that was prototype number 2. I was like, oh, I really like this. Oh, that was prototype number 3. So I was on that 2020 tour. Thank God I had that experience to be able to decide what I wanted the stick to be.
Super interesting. I think it's cool for me to hear, and it's probably going to be cool for other people to hear, like the amount of effort you're putting in to everything to do with your craft is like admirable.
Thanks.
Because, a lot of people could have just, join a big band, become a part of a big band, and then just like be like, I don't care, do whatever.
Yeah.
Make me some money, put my name on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I think it's kind of my, my upbringing and knowing what it was like being around like the E Street Band standard. And then to me, when you then focus on this type of music, and for me, I feel like there's a Slipknot standard, and there always has been, there always will be. And I had to get accustomed to that very quickly and jump on this moving freight train of what's expected. We don't settle for anything less than our standard. Yeah. And the standard is no stone left unturned, no option left, whatever. Like it is, being in Slipknot is a completely exhaustive effort, because it's just, it is incredibly detail oriented, and that goes with everything. That's why things like take so long with us, because we are that, and I learned that through my, starting to play with these guys, to where, they are the freight train that I'm jumping onto, and I had to learn how crazy intent they are and intentional about all these decisions. And that just rubbed off on me and I was like, that's how I want to approach what I do. So it's like, anything worth doing is worth going completely in on. And not to mention, it's like, what an amazing opportunity it is. It's like, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that someone would want to do this with me. Like, I'm not going to take that for granted. Like, the fact that Mixwave approached me to do this, it's on me not only to like show up and try to do a good job, but it's like, I want to overdo it to the point where like, it's just, that's just how I like to approach things. So we spent probably a day on the kick drums, because I had to do like 3 different beater combinations with my right foot, then with my left foot. I wanted that tick-tockiness, So it's God. two different kick channels, because I didn't want, if you're programming something with just one kick, it is kind of samey. Yeah. With this, you do get that tick-tockiness of 2 different kick drums, which I really like. And then I think probably one day on snare drums, one day on all the toms, and then I think 2 days on cymbals, just because the resonance takes so long to do.
Oh my God.
Hi-hats and all the different expressions. It's, you have to get the shoulder of your stick, the tip of your stick, open, semi-open, closed, semi-closed,
and you got to wait for it to go.
Yeah. No, Justin was in the control room. I got done with a hi-hat. He was like, I just watched an entire Harry Potter movie.
Fucking rare by him.
Yeah.
The Harry Potter head. What I was going to say, one last thing on that, and I completely lost my train of thought on the. Too excited about symbols. I don't know. It's gone.
Yeah, I have collected more that I'm like, I've gone to like Revival Drum Shop in Portland and like gotten some really cool, unique things that are just bells and whistles, literally.
I remember what it was gonna. I remember what it was gonna be. You still playing the Zildjian S Rock Ride?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing ever.
That thing is unreal.
The same. It's on my A rig, so it's like my main kit, and then we had a couple shows where I played on my different kit, but it's been that specific cymbal for the last 2 records and every show on. Yeah, I fucking love that.
It's like, honestly, and I know you've put all this fucking hard work into a snare drum and a kit and all this shit. I can hear that cymbal and go, it's the Jay Weinberg cymbal.
I love it.
Because it's like, I only heard it from like one of your playthroughs, like you in the studio thing. And I just remember, it was like, this was pandemic. I was watching other drummers and stuff on Twitch. And I was like, what the fuck is that ride?
Yeah.
And that was when I was with Minor and not with Zildjian. I was like, what is that? It's amazing. And then found out. And then now it's in my head, it's your ride.
I mean, dude, I've tried all the things that we've probably both, tried the mega bell and the regular rock ride. And, when I was in like punk and hardcore bands, it's not, I don't need it to be as pingy. It's more for washing on for a chorus. Like you'll play your verses on the hi-hat.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I love the sweet ride. Both the brilliant and the matte, non-brilliant, whatever you call it.
Avidis.
Yeah, right. But the S rock ride, I forget who initially was like, oh, you should, somebody from Zildjian was like, I think you might like this because it's got that pinginess that you're liking in the rock ride, but it's like kind of different. And I tried it. I was like, this is the greatest thing. And it's defined like many musical parts that I've recorded and that we play. It's all like all my blast beats are this specific thing because I fucking love this cymbal. And all those Slayer parts are,
it's a great ride for some Slayer parts.
Dude, yeah, it's great.
Like we have to, how long do you think we've been going?
I have no idea.
2 hours and 20 minutes.
Are you kidding? Oh,
no, so
sorry, everybody listening.
No, man. They're still here. But I freak out. At this point, I freak out about what if something fails?
Sure.
Because I got 3 cameras in 4K, a switcher, audio, and I'm like, if it fails, the world's fucking over.
Yeah.
So
okay.
We're gonna wrap up, right?
All right. What do you got?
And it's gonna wrap up, but hopefully, we might go off on a fucking tangent. And I should have warned you of this that it was coming, but I don't really like to because I kind of like people to give me their first possible answers.
Okay.
Top 5 artists of all time.
Artists.
Not for you. I don't mean fucking.
Not visual artists.
Not visual
Top
artists.
5 musical.
Musical artists. So it can be solo. It can be a band or whatever.
Okay. I'm gonna say the first band that made me want to become a musician was the Ramones.
Nice.
That was the first time I ever sat at a drum set trying to do something on the drums, was playing along to the It's Alive record. That to me is like the greatest live record ever. Okay, the Ramones. Being from New Jersey, the Misfits were very important to me.
Nice, love Misfits.
To this day, and going to watch them now is just like, oh my god! And seeing Dave play with them is just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever fucking seen. Okay, the Ramones, the Misfits.
Also, I just want to look like Doyle when I'm older.
He's a freak of nature.
Absolutely jacked to fuck. It's crazy.
I fucking love Doyle. Okay, the Ramones, the Misfits. Let's branch out of punk rock.
You don't have to.
No, I know. That's like that was what drew me into this kind of music, was like, I'd see like larger than life bands play and I never felt a calling to it. But it was when I saw punk rock live that I was like, I can do that. That seems like I could do that. And so those 2 bands are very important to me.
I was a punk kid as well. I was punk before I was metal, and then I was both. And no one else in school was both. And I was like, why can't I do both? Yeah. Then I found hardcore. Yeah.
Neurosis has always been so important to me. I think some of my favorite musical experiences of we were texting about. Oh my god, I got to see them and Yob at
Yob is so I replied to your story the other day because I was just like big song.
I love so
Yob is spelled YOB, by the way. There'll be people that want to check these bands out.
Oh yeah, definitely check out Yob. Clearing the Path to Ascend is just like, that's a masterpiece. But no, Neurosis, I first saw Neurosis when I was 17 at the Brooklyn Masonic Temple. Wow. Two nights of Mastodon opening up for Neurosis. Mastodon Blood Mountain was out.
Sick.
So this is pre-Crack the Sky, and to see them, Mastodon.
So what year is this then?
This is like 2007 or 8.
So this is when they still had the projectionist guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him on that last tour as well. That was the last tour. Continue.
Yeah.
With
Josh.
Yeah,
with Josh. So I saw 2 nights, and I didn't know what to expect. I was very familiar with Mastodon and had been coming to Mastodon shows for a while. And I had found Neurosis through Mastodon. Like, I think Troy in their DVD had mentioned Times of Grace as a really influential album. So I remember a buddy of mine and I got Times of Grace. Like, we went to the local record store, got a copy of Times of Grace, and listened to it at like 3 a.m. And both of us are just, it was the guitar player in my band at the time. And we just looked at each other like both of our lives just changed. Like when the doorway started, the heaviest riff of all time is the breakdown or whatever you'd call that.
The noises, the guitar.
That's like going to church for me, And so when I saw them for the first time, it was at a excuse me. The Brooklyn Masonic Temple is a private building, and so you could do whatever you want. So there's no limit to the decibel. There's no decibel limit. Baby. So it was 10 decibels above the legal New York limit. And I was up in the balcony, and I'd seen Mastodon, and they were great as always. And then Neurosis hit, and I was just I was shot back in my seat when they opened with Given to the Rising. And I was just absolute confrontation with sound, and I was just blown away. So the Ramones, the Misfits.
Just while we're on it, I knew because the Doom thing was going to come up. Do you like Cult of Luna?
Oh yeah.
Johannes has been on here before, and Cult of Luna for me. I mean, I think he said it on the podcast as well. We just started off by ripping off Neurosis, but then became their own thing.
At some point, pretty much everybody does.
That whole sound.
I went to their 30th anniversary shows in San Francisco, and Shellac opened one night, and Steve Albini, who's recorded all their albums since Times of Grace, made a really good point. He was like, "There's music before Neurosis." And there's music after Neurosis. Neurosis changed everything. Yeah. And it really is true. Like that, being exposed to that and being able to see Neurosis as many times as I did, I'm so grateful to have had that experience, because it informs so much of the depth that you can, and you can see from their lineage from when they started out as a faster hardcore punk band, and then learn more about themselves. You saw them, from Pain of Mind to Word is Law to Souls at Zero. Really, it's that transition from Word is Law to Souls at Zero, and then Enemy of the Sun and Through Silver and Blood. You could hear how they were connecting, just going further, deeper and deeper, and learning how to that's just very inspirational to me, because I feel I often feel like I'm still just at the very beginning of this journey of that discovery, and it's all self-discovery. It's not outward things of trying to reach for if I can do this, external thing that I'm not really in control of, because none of us are in control of fucking anything. You're in control of going inward and learning, further defining how you're able to express yourself. And if that's one lesson that I take from them, that's it. That set yourself on a path of learning who you are and expressing that. That's very important to me. So 2 more. Let's say, there's so many. I'll go with Depeche Mode.
Nice.
I'm a huge Depeche Mode fan. I think that it seems you meet people in our kind of community that or you go to a Depeche Mode show, even a 9 Inch Nails show. It's fun. I won't include 9 Inch Nails in this, but it's similar things. I was at a 9 Inch Nails show last summer, I think, with my wife, and we were remarking on look around us. There's every walk of life of a black t-shirt person here.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, like even with Slipknot, it's like, I don't know what to call it. You know, it's black t-shirt music.
Black
you know,
t-shirt music's a good.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you've got the crust punk who's into Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
You've got the mall metal guy or whatever. You've got the
They're in
soccer
my
mom.
top 5. So
Yeah.
I'm like wearing a Cannibal Corpse.
Which, I mean, they
t-shirt
really should be for me. I fucking love Nine Inch Nails. We played a show like separate nights, but we played a festival with them last fall, and it was just, I got to see them. God, blown away. With Depeche Mode, with, you know, the 101 Pasadena, you know, stadium that they play when Music for the Masses had come out, seeing how, like, obviously the songs are that good, you know, that it reached that many people. But like when you really kind of dive into it, it's like the subject matter is subversive. The melodies are dark.
Yeah.
Everything about it, like, especially in, you know, in that time of like what, you know, Duran Duran and whatever else was happening at the time, it's like this stuff was like very much on the darker side of that kind of spectrum of pop, you know.
Depeche
whatever.
Mode is like Wario Duran Duran.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. Yeah, so, you know, so I find a lot of inspiration in, like, you can make music that comes from like a heavy, what feels like a spiritually heavy place, dark place, but it is beautiful melody and it's very simple. And but then you also like look into the textures, and it's like even the stuff like the drum machine kind of stuff and the loops that they were creating, all things that are like tape, like they weren't playing to like a computer stuff. It's like they had tape machines that were, working this shit. Very impressive. And even today, like the records that they still put out, I think I'm going to be seeing them in like November or something. I'm still such a fan. So Depeche Mode. And then I'm going to give you one, like, you know, I could say like Metallica. I could say the E Street Band. But we've talked enough about them. I would actually say Fiona Apple is one of my favorite artists of all time. You know, I've been like reduced to rubble in a live setting, only like, you know, like actually like totally reduced to tears. Like I can't believe what I'm watching, and it's just so impactful that you just can't help but like cry. And that's happened. I've had that happen watching the E Street Band before. I've had that happen watching Neurosis, and I've had that happen watching Fiona Apple. I've rarely seen an artist like go that far into performance like I have, and I've only seen her play maybe 3 or 4 times. But there was one time she played at the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, which is a town over from where I grew up in New Jersey, and she was playing the song "Not About Love" from this album that came out. Huge moment in my life was when the album Extraordinary Machine came out. I was like 14, felt super disconnected from like everything around me, totally didn't feel understood, had no friends, like, you know, just your typical fucking punk rocker story or whatever. But I found this record, this Extraordinary Machine record, and it starts out with this very simple song about, you know, not letting any of that kind of stuff get to you, and just making the most of you know, whatever, you know, slinging arrows come my way or whatever. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm an extraordinary machine. That album really did a lot for me. And when she played this song, Not About Love, you could probably find videos of it on YouTube, this show that she played at the Count Basie Theater. I was reduced to tears. I couldn't believe that she went into some other realm, and her lyrics are so thoughtful. Her turns of phrases are just like, how does somebody think of that? Like,
I love that with lyrics. I write some lyrics for Stray, but like some people just operating on a different level of art with their words.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And she's so personal. Like, you know, it's really to see someone like bear that much of themselves and just put it right out there. And the fact that she's, you know, she's a very real person, where she, you know, like her dog was sick and she was like, I'm not going, I had a tour going. I need to be with my dog. My dog is sick. I'm not going on tour. And I was like, I completely get that. Like, I love that she's that in tune with just her life. And I feel like that reflects in her music. So we've got the Ramones, the Misfits, Neurosis, Depeche Mode, Fiona Apple.
It's a great top 5.
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm so glad you didn't say Metallica last, because I have talked about, and this counts, I've talked about Metallica on every single podcast.
How can you not, though? It's
Stop it, or else we'll do it.
Yeah, no, they're the be all end all.
I just want to say like a personal thank you for doing this, really, because in doing this, if people don't know, the reason any of this Nashville, and there's a lot of Nashville episodes now, happened, was because we didn't meet at a festival, but we knew each other was there. And you hit me up and was like, it's a shame that we didn't meet. And I was like, number one, that's really cool. And then you said, I think you said, I'd love to do the pod, or maybe I said, can you please come on a podcast? Something.
No, yeah, because, we have so many mutual friends. It's like, that, we should meet. And I enjoyed, yeah.
You invited me, in fact, to watch the E Street Band at Hyde Park.
You should have.
I know, I wanted to so bad. And then I was like doing the math on it, and it was going to cost me like nearly what this whole trip did for one episode. And while I would have done that, when I was like, let me just hit him up and see, would he do it in Nashville? And you were like, oh yeah, definitely. And then you told me you were also getting tattooed like real close. And I was like, okay, if I can get one other guest, I'll just do Nashville. And then it worked out. So thank you.
Here we are.
And everyone watching and listening. If you're just listening to this, fuck you, because it's cost me a lot of money. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Check out his, I don't have to tell you to check out Slipknot, but you got the Mixwave plugin, you got the SJC snare, you got the kit, you got your art, you got it. Dude's an enigma of art.
Trying out here.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Bye.